afternoon, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. If you guys will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Covert's going to lead us in invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for allowing us to be in these positions, Lord, to hear the concerns of the city. Lord, we ask that you just give us the thought process, Lord, that we need for the best results for everybody involved. Lord, we ask that you be with our mayor and the council. We ask that you be with the president, Lord, and the government, and to lift this up tonight to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us for our June 6, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Glad this meeting's today and not yesterday with the hogs going all-nighter like they did the night before. Everybody would be pretty tired for this on that. But if we could go ahead and do roll call.
Gary Compton. Here. Roy Covert.
Here.
Vivi Haney. Here. Shannon Mueller.
Here.
Peyton Parker.
Here.
Kevin Parsley.
Here.
Aaron Pinato.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Dale Tyler.
Here. And any questions of last month's minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mrs. Haney.
Second.
Second by Mr. Coverts. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So first item on the agenda is public hearing amendment to Code Ordinance Chapter 130 to amend Article 6, Section 3.4 to change Mill Street Market to Downtown Springdale Farmers Market, presented by Patsy Christie.
The ordinance that establishes the locations for the farmers market gives a specific name for it. It was previously called the Mill Street Market, and what we're doing now is just renaming this as the Downtown Springdale Farmers Market. And it is still to be located totally on Mill Street between Price Street and Johnson Avenue between Spring Street and to the western right-of-way of Mill Street, ensuring that entrance to the parking lot on the south side of Johnson Avenue and the on-street parking along the north side of Johnson remains opened. And this would be to the designated area for the Downtown Springdale Farmers Market. That's the only change to the ordinance. This is a public hearing too.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, it's to the commission.
This would be a motion to move it forward to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll make a motion to move it to council for approval.
Motion by Mrs. Haney.
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes.
Pinato.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Amendment passes 9-0.
The ordinance will go to the council meeting next Tuesday evening.
Next section is tabled items R 17-19, John Backus, 2126 Maestri Road from A1 to C2, presented by Steve Lyle.
Thank you. This item comes to you as a rezoning because the property is currently zoned. It's never been zoned. It was brought into the city as A1. But I want to be very clear, we're not asking to change the use of the property. The property currently is a commercial property and has been from the time it was brought into the city. It's always been used as a commercial property. What we are asking to do is simply to make the zoning consistent with the already existing use. If you've had a chance to look at the photographs I've supplied or maybe had a chance to see the property, today, there are over we estimate about 10,000 square feet of commercial building space on the property. There's a tremendous amount of paving and parking on the property for that use. It's a 4.5 acre tract that we're asking to bring into the commercial zone. About 3 acres of it, we estimate, are already developed, fully developed as commercial. So we're not asking to change the characteristics of the property or the use of the property. We're just caught into a dilemma. The way the zoning works is that to get any use out of this last 1.5 acres of property, we have to have a zoning change. We can't, the property was grandfathered, so it was allowed to be continued as a commercial use, but it's technically an agricultural property. Obviously, it's not going to be used or developed as an agriculture use in the future. for that last 1.5 acres. And so if you also look back, some of you may have been on the commission, in 2015, an expansion was approved so that the buildings could be enlarged. And as a part of that, this body, the city, required Bacchus Concrete to expand their parking area. And in doing that, at that time, they did about close to $300,000 worth of expansions on the buildings. The paving that was required by the city was close to $100,000 for the parking areas. They had to extend a water fire hydrant, and they invested a lot of money doing that. Now, I understand that there are some adjacent property owners that haven't been happy with the property as a commercial use up to now and don't want to see it be rezoned commercial. But keep in mind that this was already a commercial property and that the use is not going to change. And some of the concerns that have been raised by the city in the past for the uses of the property and the adjacent property owners can't be addressed unless we get a zoning change. For instance, I think the first complaints were made about outdoor storage of equipment, trailers being parked outdoors and things like that. Well, the only way we can get those properties indoors is to build a commercial building and move those indoors. We would wish there was a mechanism where we could submit to you a fully baked plan to show exactly how we plan to do that. We have a chicken and egg problem here. In order to submit a large-scale development, we have to get rezoning. And I think some people may be concerned about doing the rezoning without a large-scale development plan, and so we just go in a circle. So all we can do is show you our intent, which if you look at the pictures, we have some renditions of the plan. And really all this zoning we hope to accomplish is the ability to build a building on this back 1.5 acres. We would have to provide, if we're allowed the zoning change, if you have an agricultural property next to a residential property, there are no screening requirements between those two properties. That's the way the property exists now, so there's not any screening. If we submit a large-scale development plan, if you approve the rezoning and we submit a large-scale development plan, we will be required and would be happy, my clients would be happy to provide screening. And they would provide an opaque screening in accordance with the zoning. They'd also provide a vegetative screening between those properties. And they would orient the building in a way, if you look at the pictures, so that the new building would act as a screen. So you would have that acting as a screen between the residential properties and the current uses. Now keep in mind, we're already 3 acres into a 4.5 acre tract. So we're talking about 1.5 acres that we think we can make look better, function better for everyone if the zoning is allowed. If the zoning's not allowed, because currently, the way my understanding of the land use plan shows this as single-family residential, that is impossible to do on this property. You have 4.5 acres, 3 acres of which has over 10,000 square feet of commercial buildings and parking areas on it. For someone to build a house there, they would either have to tear every bit of that out. So you buy like $1 million worth of commercial improvements and tear them all out to build 4 acres worth of houses. No one can afford to do that. The other option, I guess theoretically, would you could try to build one house behind the existing commercial use, and a house behind a commercial use that only has access to the house by driving through the parking area of the commercial use is not marketable. So the land use plan in general for this area may be a good one, but for this particular piece of property that is already under commercial use, it's just not feasible. So if we're not allowed the zoning change, then what we're saying is you just can't use it at all. It just has to be left as a green space. And that's not fair to the landowner who has the right to have the highest and best use of their property. So we think that this would be the correct way to zone the property for planning purposes. It would allow the commercial zoning restrictions that protect adjacent properties to come into play, and my clients would abide by those, and they would do a reasonable development of the last part of this property and try to address all the concerns so that they can be a good neighbor. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Betsy?
The adopted land use plan for this area indicates low-density residential use. The rezoning request is not in keeping with the comprehensive land use plan and is not recommended for approval. In addition, it appears that commercially zoned property in Tiny Town may be more than 1,000 feet from this tract, and the requirements of Arkansas Code annotated 1456-306 may apply. If so, any rezoning of this land to commercial would not be effective until and if Tiny Town passes a resolution consenting to the rezoning. I must remind you that we are not rezoning this piece of property for what Mr. Lyle is proposing for them to take care of. As you've heard me say thousands of times, whatever you consider to be the worst case use of this piece of property as a C2 zone, that's what we need to consider when we're rezoning this piece of property. There is not any commercial in this area, so it becomes a spot zone if we redo this. If there is a need to redo all of this, in my opinion, we need to wait until after we know what's going to happen with 112 and see what location the highway department has before we start making major changes at intersections like this or along 112 itself. The highway department has commissioned a study. It's in the design phases. We don't have all that information yet, so that's why we haven't recommended a change to the land use plan in this location. It was on the land use plan at the time the property was purchased as low-density residential. That hasn't changed, and they were granted a non-conforming use and allowed to expand that non-conforming use. The idea behind a non-conforming use is for that to go away, not necessarily to cause the zone, be the reason why the property is rezoned. But again, let me remind you, we are not rezoning it just for this use. We're rezoning it for whatever is allowed in a C2 zone. And let me go over what a C2 zone is and what all is allowed in a C2 zone. The C2 General Commercial District is established in order to be a broad range of retail uses, which comprise the commercial, hold on, just a minute, I gotta get this a little bit bigger. That didn't work. Get back to where I was. Sorry.
Yeah, I asked Patsy to read through as far as what all is in a C2, just to make sure everything is clear as far as the acceptable type of businesses that would be available within that type of zone.
Okay. Permitted uses included most types of retail activity except those involving open display of merchandise and those which generate large volumes of vehicular traffic or are otherwise incompatible with the purpose and intent of the C2 General Commercial District. Retail areas zone C2 shall be generally concentrated as to geographical configuration. It is anticipated, however, that in some situations, change to another commercial or office classification may be appropriate to permit the transition of a strip retail areas to other productive forms of land uses. It is the intent of this regulation that the C2 district be concentrated at the intersections of arterial streets. Extension of the district along major arterial streets in linear fashion shall be discouraged. Permitted uses are Use Unit 1, city-wide public uses by right. Use Unit 4, cultural, recreational, and health facilities. Use Unit 16, offices, studios, and related services. Use Unit 17, eating places. 19, neighborhood shopping goods. 20, shopping goods. 21, trades and services. 22, automotive services. 27, parking lot. 32, temporary buildings. 35, transportation services. 45, healthcare clinics. 45, indoor flea markets. Then there are some uses that are indicated as conditional on appeal, which would be city uses that are conditional, utility facilities, recycling collection facilities, self-supporting tower, antenna, or monopole, auction houses, temporary classrooms, automobile sales, church, synagogue, mobile vending sites, and commercial assemblies. That's the permitted and conditional uses in a C2 zone.
And this is the regular C2, not the ballpark district C2.
Well, because this is outside the overlay district.
I just want to
so
make
the-
sure that we cover that
so
with
the-
everybody.
The restrictions that were placed on that, removing some of those use units, does not apply to this area.
Okay.
Correct, I'm sorry, you're right.
Can I comment on that? Because I think sometimes when when you hear the zoning, the use that's out there right now would be, I think, one of the heavier uses in a C2 zone, and that's not going to change. So there's not I think it can cause this irrational theoretical fear that something worse is coming. Look at what's allowed in the current zoning as an A1. You could put a stockyard out there right now without your approval. We could put chicken houses on it without your approval. Well, the reason that's not a concern to you is because you know that somebody's not likely to do that. And that's not going to happen. You can envision all of your worst fears of what might theoretically be allowed in a C2 zone, but there is very real investment in this property already. You have a good idea of how this property is going to be used for the next foreseeable decades because of the amount of improvements that have been put into the land. Someone is not likely to invest $1 million into this property and then completely change it or do some lower rent activity that's going to be more harmful to the community because of the investment that's already been put into the property. We're talking about very little property that's left there on the back that can be used consistently with what's on the front. And again, if you want to envision worst case scenarios, the worst case scenario would be an agricultural use that would be a lot more offensive to the neighbors. So it's not fair to only envision worst case scenarios that make our position look worse. And there is C5 zoning to the north of this property, and in Taneytown, there's commercial zoning that's only 1,300 feet away to the west. So there is some consistent zoning with this property in the area. So for those reasons, I don't think there's a worst case scenario out there, other than we're just trying to build one building that's consistent with what's already out there.
With all due respect, it is important for us to actually read through and make sure that both the citizens and also the Planning Commission is completely aware of all the different types of use units that are allowed into this, because it has happened on numerous occasions where same situation like you're standing up there saying that the business will be there for the foreseeable future, and a year down the road sells and goes into something else. And whatever you describe or think is the worst case scenario in many cases is not in that. And so those are the reasons why we have to look at that as far as all the types of use units in that, and allow the citizens to be able to speak on behalf as far as what their concerns might be. They might be concerned with an A1 in that whole piece, and there might be many that are in favor of that, but it's critically important for us to be able to do education of the whole thing.
I appreciate that. That's true.
Okay? Anything else? Okay. Open it up to the audience if there's any questions or comments. If you could come to the mic and state your name and address for the Planning Commission, please.
I'm Bill Brandt. I live at 2025 South Maestry Road. I live approximately about 900 feet to the northwest of this property, or where the noise is generated. We get banging of a dump truck beds, backup bells, and all this kind of stuff. Also, I have 47 acres in Springdale, which is north of Nancy Riggins, Clint McLean, and also the GNC Family LLC. So I've got a vested interest in this as to what's going on there. I'd like to give you a little background as to how all this came about. Of course, it was annexed into the city in 2011. Clayton, do you have a slide on that?
You do?
Okay. Now, the bank foreclosed on this property back in 2013. Now, this was not always commercial. It was vacant for about 8 months, a little over 8 months, because I believe it's stated in Mr. Lyles' letter here that the concrete company bought it in 2013, which was, I think, purchased that in November, if I'm not mistaken, of 2013. Now, I've got a question here also. A business license was not issued on this till September of 2015. So remember, we've got a 9-month period, nearly a 9-month period where the property was vacant. The bank foreclosed on it, took it, and the Stuckey was a Stuckey painting company. As far as I know, there was nothing about sheetrock in it. Also, the only piece of this property that was used for commercial by the Stuckeys was the original building, which was 40 by 50. The 30 by 80 building that he had was for a yacht. I've seen that yacht parked in there when the garage doors were open. I've seen a tractor trailer rig pull it in, so there was no business associated with that larger building at all. And this non-conforming use expansion was done in October of 2015. And we had resident request for additional expansion of the non-conforming use was denied on September the 6th of 2016. The property was used beyond expansion. Mr. Backus was convicted of code violation on March 30th of this year based on storage beyond approved coverage space. Now, this is under appeal at the present time. There's been numerous violations for noise, and there could be a lot more than the calls that have been made. And of course, the grading permit has been open for almost a year, and they keep hauling in dirt. Of course, the city has no time limit on a grading plan, so that's something that needs to be addressed. Next slide, please. Now, this slide projects the residential area. As you see in the bottom of the picture, there's approximately 20 established homes. This is along New Hope Road, of which there are several members that live along there. And then to the west, you've got to the northwest, you've got in Tiny Town, another 20 or better. And then you got Western Trails and so forth to the north. That vacant piece of property in the middle, there is my 47 acres. So I do have a vested interest in this. Next slide. Of course, this is the master plan set by the ballpark overlay, which is the purple area, and which does include that area. Okay, next slide. Thoughts? The zoning is done to protect the community from intrusive usage. It is not unjust to limit land usage of a property purchased after annexation. When we purchase property in the community, we'll all choose to limit our use to be part of that community. You cannot shoot your gun inside the city limits. That's a restriction that we all have. Annexing an AA1 provides an orderly transition into urban development and encouraging single-family residential and large-scale tracts. The community is primarily single-family residents on large land tracts. Beyond current non-conforming use, rezoning opens area up to a wide variety of uses, possibly causing significant damage to the property value of homes in the area. And here again, I would like to reiterate the point that this basically is spot zoning. And when you do spot zoning, you inflict other things on the residents around the area, which is not good. The classic definition of spot zoning is the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of the owner of such property and to the detriment of the owners of 60 or more owners in the area. So I am against this. It has created a dust problem. I know Clint has trouble with, he's got a swimming pool. He's got a scum of dirt on top of it a lot of the time. So, gentlemen and ladies, please take into consideration the neighbors do not want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the audience?
My name is Larry Manette, and I live at 6447 New Hope Road, directly across from where this is. And don't go there. It's just not something that's suitable for that area. I mean, it would totally devastate the values of everything around there if this gets started in that little 4.5 acre tract of ground there. There'll be no end to it. So it's got to stop somewhere, and I don't see how it got this far, this fast in 2 years to come up with what it is now. I've been living there 27 years. It's all been people have grazed cows out there and everything else, but this popped up about, I don't know how many, several years ago when that guy that lived there built that first little building there, 40 by 60, and he kept his whatever he wanted to in it, and he had a little painting business in it. But this has gone way beyond whatever it started to be on the plan, the original plan. It's just gone. And it seems like there's nobody that cares about the surrounding area because it's dusty, it's noisy, it's just an eyesore. You can't fence a 16-foot wall side building that's already above ground level. You can't make that invisible to all the surrounding neighbors. So I don't know, this is just not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Hey, I'm Gene Ellison. I live at 2201 South Maestri Road. From the appearances that I see at my little corner of the world there, the Baxters don't have any respect for y'all or any of their neighbors. They've continued to grow back there ahead of their schedule, ahead of y'all's approving anything. They've purchased the 17 acres that surrounds my corner lot. They are currently storing all kinds of pipe, supplies, stuff that goes under driveways, all of that back there. It looks like a snake pit to me, and I live right there. They have no respect for their neighbors or the city, or they wouldn't have started this in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Stacy Turner, and I live just about 2 lots down from Mr. Larry.
Can you give your address just for the record?
6531 New Hope Road.
Thank you.
And Larry's right. I mean, we went from having a beautiful area right out my front door. We have a love seat sitting out there, like to sit out there at night. 4th of July, we get there for the Arvest ballpark. We can see the fireworks perfectly. And we've gone from having all this beautiful space to this dirt just showing up. And not only dirt, we're talking huge, big chunks of concrete that's just been dumped in there. They've slowly covered it up, but there's no telling how many tons of concrete has just been dumped. And, you know, I'm in agreement with my neighbors. I mean, they've never come and talked to anyone. never explained what they wanted to do, never apologized for anything. They had the property that is across the street from them, I think Mr. Lyle said 1,300 feet, zone commercial, unless I'm mistaken, is owned by them. It's not. They had a huge fireworks display that they went across the street to do. From my understanding, they got a permit from Tawnytown. Now, if I'm wrong, correct me. Did y'all have that fireworks deal for the employees? That was loud. I mean, it was like the Arvest ballpark was maybe 1,300 feet from my house, and I mean, loud. But if that's not y'all's property, I apologize. I was told it was, so I apologize for that. But, I mean, that's my main concern. I don't know how far they're going to go. I don't know how much they're wanting to expand, but what's sitting there now, I think is horrible. And I know anything else that goes up is going to take more of my view away. And just, you know, I went from having a beautiful view outside my house to what we've got now. And I don't know if y'all have seen what's sitting there now, but I mean, I know they're going to do something with it, but it's not the most pleasing view. And I've lived out there almost my whole life. I've known Mr. Brandt since I was probably about 8 years old. And, you know, we've always kind of liked the area, but I had no problem with where it was, but when that expansion started and it just seemed to roll and roll and just didn't like it. And that's my take on it. I mean,
Thank you.
that's what I have to say.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
There were a couple of details that came up that I just wanted to clarify a little bit, if that's okay. I think somebody had mentioned that the city had allowed the expansion and then had given the business license. Well, what initially took the city out to the property was the two small buildings that were there when they were annexed into the city were being expanded without building permits at that time. So I don't know if it was the city, I don't know who it was, but had contacted the city about the expansion of the buildings. And at that time, the building inspector, when he went out there, then looked to see if there was a business license. That's what initiated the business license application, and then that's what initiated the non-conforming use request. So I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't like the city went out there and said, you can expand. It was already kind of in the process of that at the time. These pictures I received by email today from one of the neighbors. This is it's kind of a little bit hard to see, but this is the dirt area in the back. And that's what the email said it looks like today. So.
My name's Chris. I'm the Stormwater Program Coordinator for the city. I represent the engineering department. Concrete can be used as a fill material. In March, I did an inspection of the property, and I informed Mr. Backus's supervisor at the time that any trash or materials made out of plastic need to be removed from the site. Concrete can be used as a fill material. However, materials such as barrels, trash, plastic, they all have to be removed from that site without a proper ADEQ dumping permit.
My question is beyond that property, what does that do to the drainage?
Drainage at this time is going primarily along the north side of the property. Mr. Backus has worked with us in the engineering department. He has put up wattle. He has put up silt fence, and he has put up a wall of sandbags between the property to the north and his current operation. However, this project is not complete. The red dirt that's visible, all of the fill concrete that's visible in the photographs, will be required to go under the dirt. Topsoil will be required to go across the entire project and it will be reclaimed back to a grassy field. It will be at a higher elevation. There's an optical illusion that makes it look higher elevation than it is. The rear of the property has a 9-foot elevation lift from its original starting point. We've confirmed this in the engineering department. We are watching it in the engineering department. I do 2 inspections of this property every month. I come out there every time we have a complaint from the general public. I've been on the property to the north, been on the property to the east. I've watched this property more than any other property in town. I actually plan to go there on Friday and inspect it again. They have a new staff member that has just taken over the supervisory role for this specific fill period. The approved grading portion of this project is from the middle of the property back. Everything that has happened from the middle of the property forward is not a part of the open grading permit. The open grading permit is the disturbed area that's listed on the approved plat. The grading permit was signed by the Director of Engineering in April of last year. It has been open for about 14 months. When I visit the site on Friday, if there's any issues associated that have been previously addressed, I will address them again. We believe in compliance. We work with Mr. Backus, and he has given us compliance. There has been no notice of violations from the engineering department on this site. I say that on Chapter 107 reference. Chapter 107 is our stormwater ordinance. He has not violated our stormwater ordinance for a period that has needed a notice of violation. His crew has worked with us to come into compliance and has exceeded what most construction companies would do on the north side by adding additional layers of protection between him and his neighbors. A lot of the water that crosses the property line is turbid water. Turbid water means that it's cloudy. It doesn't matter how many times you filter muddy water, it's going to be cloudy. What we're looking for is to make sure that there's nothing crossing the property line to the north that would be considered damaging to the neighboring properties. We have addressed specific issues. We are currently addressing specific issues. The water has to be returned back to the route that it was originally taking.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, this is just on the, I just wanted to ask a question as far as mainly on were we within compliance, and the answer is yes in that whole piece. And so, Clint, if you have comments and everything, if I can have you come up to the mic and everything, okay? If you can state your name and address.
Sorry for my tardiness. My name is Clint McLean. I live at 2082 South Maestri Road. I live on the floodplain created by the red dirt to the north. Just to Chris's point, we actually do have significant amount of erosion that is already starting to occur underneath the tree line that I'm leaving in there as screening. I know that's not the issue for today, but it is an issue which is we need to ensure that the continued erosion doesn't kill those trees, which would stop the screening that I'm doing my dead level best to do to keep myself separated from the property to the south. I've been trying to listen on the phone, so I won't rehash what has already gone on. I would like to ask the question, though. It came up earlier, the question of, are we going to allow Mr. Backus to have full use of his property? And it's almost as though we're asking the question, once we purchased a property and we box ourselves in with concrete and development, the city, therefore, should let us use the rest of it, which to me is a terrible precedence. We have said from the beginning, when he purchased this product, our property, that it was in an ag zone territory. It was always known to be future rate as low density residential. That hasn't changed. And just because we've ignored that and put in an enormous amount of concrete and development, some of that development before we had permits, should not influence the board to say, well, he won't get the full value of his property. Because we all limit our property values, we all limit the use of our property when we move into a community. I was talking to Bill the other day. I said, I would love to shoot guns on my back property, but I don't because I have neighbors. So I don't get to use my property full tilt for anything I want. And by the expansion of this, it will actually hurt my property use and my property value. It already has. The second point I want to make was the question of if we turn this into commercial, then we can better control it. I can be a better neighbor if I'm controlled by the code. First of all, I don't want us to pretend that we couldn't end up with the worst case scenario on this property. And you guys know, once we zone it, we are there. Because we're living that, first of all, right now. We had a small business we probably could have put an issue on before we were zoned in, and we didn't react because it was one truck, a few paints, no big deal. What could it possibly cause a problem? Then it gets in later, you get a bigger property, and it just goes from there. The reality is it can get much worse, and we shouldn't pretend that it doesn't. That's really all I've got to say. Is there anything else I need to address? Thank you for the time.
Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Tom?
Okay.
Doug Parks, live at 6198 New Hope Road. I'd be the second house from his new pad that he's being allowed to build 9 feet tall, or 8 feet tall, whatever it was. I went out there the
permits, no
huh?
grading permits, no building on
Yeah,
there, so.
well, eventually something will be put on top of it.
Not without a zoning change.
Okay. Well, his water, he doesn't, there's no, used to be green space there. Now there's no green space. And he can, doesn't have to, I'm sorry, he can't just drain all his water and waste because it's not being absorbed anymore because there's no green space there to absorb the water. It's all running over onto his neighbors. He talked about his, Mr. Backus talked about his financial value. Well, all of his neighbors have financial value too, and our property will be devalued if he keeps building because most cement businesses have from what we've looked at, have light industrial to heavy industrial zoning codes. I'm sorry, that's about it, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm Nathan Edwards. I just moved into 6112 New Hope Road, and I'd just like to ask you to consider not approving the C2 zoning and just continue to monitor the property as its current non-conforming use or conditional use until some of these issues can be further resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Colby?
Colby Fulfer, 1323 San Miguel. Got a couple of questions. Patsy, you mentioned the non-conforming use on that, and you stated that that's not done to be a permanent solution. That's a temporary decision. Is that correct?
You want me to read you what the definition of non-conforming is? Okay.
Yeah.
This is the intent. This is in the zoning ordinance under, sorry, I forgot. I get yelled at. The purpose of this article is to establish regulations and limitations for exceptions to the continued use of uses, lots, and structures which were established prior to the effective date of this chapter as amended, which is not conforming to the provisions of this chapter. Such nonconformities may continue, but the provision of this article are designed to curtail enlargement or expansion of such nonconforming nonconformities and to encourage their eventual elimination in order to preserve the integrity of the zoning districts and the regulations established by the chapter. That's what the intent of a nonconforming use is. That's why expansions are limited to not to exceed 30%. The Planning Commission can't approve more than 30%. So that's the intent of a nonconforming use.
So with that, it's, in my, and I'm all for property rights. However, in this situation, that the nonconforming use, it doesn't seem to me like that it would be a right afforded to them to receive the rezoning. I mean, they could continue using it as is, except for what you said, what is it, 30% beyond? Here's the other question I had. I know this is not in the overlay district, but isn't there an expansion area that we're going to expand the overlay regulations into?
Well, it was the intent when the overlay district was started that it would cover this entire area. When we got the regulations together, we pulled them back to get started with it. That's up to the council if they want to extend it to the entire district or not. Hasn't been done yet. But it is listed on the land use plan as part of that district, but the ordinance right now doesn't cover it.
So when they expand this, though, the new regulations for the overlay district are going to be imposed on this property.
If the council chooses to expand the ordinance to say that it's extended to that entire area,
Sure.
yes. Yeah.
And this would be the year to make those changes as far as land use, correct?
We're doing land use, no, we're doing master street plan updates this year.
Okay.
The first of the year, we would, if that change occurs through the council, then we have to update the comprehensive land use plan next year. We do those in even numbered years and master street plans in odd numbered years.
Well, it would, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it would, the new requirements would put a lot more restrictions on what this would look like if there was expansion done on this. And I know the city has gone, the Planning Commission worked tirelessly, the council, the city has worked on that overlay district area to make it a unique part of our city, just like we have with downtown and with the form-based codes. And if this is an area that's going to fit inside of that, at the very least, I would ask that we wait on this until that is adopted by the city council. I would hope it wouldn't go forward from here with the rezoning, but at the very minimum, my request would be that it would be tabled, I guess, until this is decided on by the city council to at least have the new regulations.
Of course, once a request is tabled the second time, they would have to resubmit. By ordinance, that's the only way that can work.
Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Kicklack. I live at 2400 Boston Mountain View in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I represent Cheryl Tyson, and I wanted to make sure I lodged her objection to the rezone as well. I'm not going to repeat everything that was already said. I think this has been well covered. I wanted to mention, as I listened to Steve, for whom I have a lot of respect, but I would disagree. I don't think he needs a rezone to be a good neighbor. I think anybody can be a good neighbor anytime, and I think that Mr. Backus is free to do that now. I would say that it sounds like is that we've learned that letting the camel's nose into the tent really does have consequences, and when y'all, I think, bent over backwards to assist the applicant, I think it's caused nothing but heartache and some headache, just not only for staff, but for the neighbors ever since. And my client is afraid it'll continue to get worse. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is that there was a rezoning attempt in Tawnytown with the applicant's owned land, and that was denied. Tawnytown will certainly object, respectfully, but certainly object, and would want its sister city to know that they would not want this land to be rezoned in the ways proposed, and they would consider that to be incompatible. Other than that, I hope that y'all will vote this down or table it again, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
My name's John Backus, and really the only point that hasn't been already mentioned is, you know, this property is on Highway 112, and no matter what, it's always going to be on highway frontage. I mean, they're not going to do without the highway. So asking for commercial usage for highway frontage property doesn't, you know, isn't out of the question by any means. You know, we've had numerous complaints from our neighbor, and every time somebody comes out, and you know, the one thing that we've been written up for was parking on the grass, and I think that was our main violation, is parking on the grass. Every time there's noise or silt or anything that's suspect, somebody comes out and responds, and we have not been, you know, there's been no violations. We haven't done anything, and we're very respectful of our neighbors. You know, we've spent a lot of time and money on engineering, architecture, everything else to try to make this visually appealing from the street, from the neighbors, because this is part of our image, and it's important. You know, we want to get along with our neighbors. You know, we want to have a good-looking appearance from the street, from the neighbors, and everything. You know, naturally, the ground drained from the middle of the property to the east by 9 feet. Now, you know, or actually 12 feet. And we've brought in some fill, you know, and compacted it in lifts. We've done it just like, you know, we're not getting rid of trash. We're not getting rid of topsoil. We're not getting rid of junk. I mean, most of our material has come from, you know, concrete that we've torn out, or red dirt fill from the Children's Hospital. I mean, we're doing this to the best of our ability and, you know, and standards. We're not changing the direction of the water. It was always going that direction. You know, that's you know, about where we stand. Do you have any of the other slides that we submitted?
They're all in the packet on there.
But they're not on video.
Clayton, can you pull up those pictures that were put in the packets? Go to the,
Are you wanting to pull up the renderings? Is that what you were looking at, or? Because you've got several pictures in there.
And the pictures that, you know, are supposedly today's picture, they're not. You know, they're not. We've brought in a lot of red dirt. Just about every piece of concrete has got cover on it. We're working on sloping our back slopes 3 to 1. You know, we're preparing for our final stages.
getting there, it's just like, he's gonna pull it. I'm sorry? They have it on their iPads. We're getting ready to put it on the screen.
Well, you know, essentially.
Like page 61, Clayton. 61, especially the renderings is 61. There you go. You're getting into them now.
This is what they all got on their iPads, so they had a chance to see.
These are your existing locations here.
Right.
And then when it gets, I think, to 61, this is your renderings that you would have on it.
Right, you know, and
I apologize, that's the only.
And that's fine. You know, we're just trying to show you the efforts that we're willing to go through to make this, you know, function and appealing, you know, for the neighbors, for our customers, for our employees. I mean, we're not looking to put in used chicken house trusses. You know, we're trying to make this, you know, enhance the visual aspects of the operation. I mean, we're not cutting corners. We're not trying to do this any other way but to make this, you know, a great place.
Thank you, John. Any other questions or comments? Okay, it's to the commission.
I think the comments that I have are that you have come before us for the conditional use, and then the attempts that you made last year to continue to expand that were denied. And the first time, we're aware that that property was grandfathered in, and you had not put all the money into the building and the concrete, and many of the, my understanding was that that additional building was not going to expand you beyond the portion of the property that you were supposed to use, but that it was to clean up what was a not very nice situation in how the land was.
Well, at no time were we, was there any conversation about our limits until, until we were cited with parking on the grass, and then it evolved into using more than what our original footprint was, and that's what, and that's when we asked for the addition. We asked for the 30% addition, and it was denied. And then, after further discussion, we talked about going to, because we were going to appeal, and then it got brought to a workshop, and then, at that point, we didn't go through the appeal process. We're just trying to get the rezoning so that we're not asking for 30% of our 30% more usage, but that's been the only, that's been the only denial is asking for the 30% additional footprint of the purchase.
But when you came the first time, it was made clear that it was grandfathered in.
Right.
And you had not put the money in to all the paving and the additional at that point. So that was a decision to me that you made, and what I looked at was there was that nice buffer between you and the eventual residences, and since you already owned the property when we're running your business, to allow you to continue to use your property how you were using it without expansion.
I guess I'm not following you totally. I mean, when we applied for our building permit, and we did start construction with in ignorance of not knowing that it was annexed in. So then, after we got, we got notice that we needed to go through the city and get a building permit. There was no intention, and there was no, we weren't trying to deceive or anything. So once we found out we needed a building permit, we had all inspections without needing to do anything additional. We weren't trying to cut corners or anything like that. And during that process, there was no. I mean, what it was, what we were told is we needed to do 7 parking spots, a fire hydrant, and this much paving. At no time was it ever talked about that, okay, do you understand that this is all you're going to be able to build here? This is your maximum capacity, this is your maximum limit. It would have, that's a game changer. I mean,
so I do want to pull this back to just the rezoning as far as on this, because we've already addressed as far as last year as far as the expansion piece on that.
So on the rezoning portion, to me, to allow you to expand a very small portion that was going to clean up the existing, it was going to allow you to clean up the piles and to park your vehicles in the section that you were using, was your choice to expand. But to go beyond that and to put the whole property at that C2 level was never in the picture from the standing that I had and the understanding that I had of the use. Because clearly, the land use plan showed residential. And that house was a residential house with a building on it. And you were expanding the building.
Is there any other comments from the commission?
I got a question. Is comprehensive land use plan update of 2010, is that what we're currently using?
It gets reviewed every 2 years. We don't make amendments to it every 2 years. So the one that you're looking at, if you're looking at the city's website, is the most current one because we haven't made any changes to it.
According to that, we are trying to plan integrated commercial areas instead of spot areas for commercial.
Right. As one of the goals and policies of that plan itself. Correct, yes.
Thank you.
This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Powell. Dr. Compton, did you have any questions or? Okay.
Covert,
No.
Haney,
No.
Mueller,
No.
Parker,
No.
Parsley,
No.
Panado,
No.
Powell,
No.
Tyler,
No.
Compton.
The rezoning fails to pass, 9-0.
You have the right to appeal the planning commission's decision. Has to be filed within 15 days in the city clerk's office. You have to identify why you think the planning commission's decision was an error, and then adjacent property owners have to be notified again before it be put on the agenda. Okay.
Thank you. Next section, public hearing, R17-21, Norma Glover, 324 North 48th Street, from A1 to C5, presented by Norma Glover.
My name is Norma Glover, and I'm 324 North Seaton Drive. I would like to rezone from A1 to C5 for the growth of that community. I do have C5 on the north and on the west of me already. And I would like to get that done before I'm die.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan and is recommended for approval. Approve the city's economic base and tax structure through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations. Assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size and in proper locations. And encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the residents and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Powell.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Rezoning passes 9-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on June the 27th.
Next section, or next item, R17-22, Marty and Melanie Teasy, 8727 East Wagon Wheel Road, from A1 to SF1. We're also going to have, well, let's just do that one first, but don't leave, because we're going to do your variance as well. That way you don't have to
That'll
stay
work.
through all this.
I'm Marty Teasy, and I purchased 1.59 acres that's zoned agricultural. And in order to build a house on it, it has to have more than 2 acres if it's agricultural, so we like to rezone it to residential.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates low-density residential use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Protect the positive aspects of neighborhood character throughout the city. Appropriate locations for single-family and multifamily residential development. And assure adequate land allocation for residential purposes by providing lots of adequate size.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Compton.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Rezoning passes 9-0. And let's see,
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 27th.
and then we have a variance, B 17-32. Marty and Melanie Teasy, 8727 East Wagon Wheel Road, variance for reduction of rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, presented by Marty Teasy.
When you look at this property and the house that we're going to build and the setbacks off of Wagon Wheel Road, in order to stay off of those setback easements, we'd like to reduce that rear setback by 10 foot. So if they do ever expand it, we're not sitting right on the road. So we'd like to reduce that to 10 foot if we could.
Staff
I've
has
got
any
some
problem
maps
with
here
that?
if you want to look at it.
I don't think staff had any problems with that. We sit down and talked about it. We looked at the layout. We looked at the options that were available to him. It's kind of a long, skinny, narrow, and we're trying to plan for the widening of Wagon Wheel Road so that we don't cause a problem for him and he's not too close to the road when the road is widened out.
Because the
when and if it
property owner
does.
behind it is Water Department, correct?
Yes, the property owner behind it is the water department, and, you know, it's not going to have a lot of other heavy use.
That's a pump station right there.
Well, this station, yes.
And the cemetery's right next to us. They haven't been.
Those people don't complain too much usually.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission? Call for the vote. Call for the vote by Mr. Covert?
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Variance passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on rezoning, R 17-23, City of Springdale Water and Sewer Commission, that was withdrawn per applicant.
We're going to come back with a larger rezoning of all their property rather than this just one little piece.
So there'd be multiple ones on that one.
It'll be one rezoning request for all the property that they have in that location. Yeah.
Next section is lot splits. Lot split 17-17, Greg Winery, 5015 Accident Roads, and also has a waiver 17-10 of subdivision requirements presented by Blue and Associates.
I'm James Temple with Blue and Associates, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm here to represent the tract split. The wineries own a three-acre tract of land on Accident Road, and all they wish to do is divide it into three pieces so that they can distribute it among their children. That's all they want to do, and there's no plan for any other development.
Houses is already there for the building.
But when you go to 3 lots, that's a subdivision. So they're asking for a waiver of subdivision regulations in order to do this lot split. All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval.
Anything else? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Do we do the waiver first? or-
The waiver of subdivision requirements that will be recommended to the city council because they actually have to waive. That means they don't have to do street improvements or anything like that either.
So one's a call for the vote, the other's a motion.
Right. So it's a waiver is a motion, the lot split is a call for the vote. Or no, it's a motion subject to staff comments. Right, I'm sorry.
So I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Haney,
Second.
second by Mr. Powell.
Okay, this is on the lot split,
Yes,
correct?
it is.
Okay. Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Lot split passes 9-0.
This is a motion to recommend to city council the waiver of subdivision regulations. That's where you want to go.
The motion?
Yeah.
Motion. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Powell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Compton.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Thank you. That's not good here. Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes. Waiver passes 9-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution that goes to council on the 27th.
Thank Next section, preliminary plats, replats and final plats. Replat 17-08, replat of lots 6 and 7 Diesel Downs, northeast corner of Wagon Wheel Road and I-49, presented by Ozark Civil Engineering.
Good evening. Mike Klopfelter with Ozark Civil Engineering, here representing our client for MHC Development. We're proposing to replat, combine the two lots, lots 6 and 7. It's approximately 12.33 acres. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Staff comments?
Submit the AutoCAD and PDF files at the time of resubmission. I'm assuming you're going to do that if we don't have them already. All
Yes, ma'am.
comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be approved prior to approval.
That's it? Good. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
This is a motion subject to staff comments.
Motion to approve. Staff comment. Motion by Mr. Powell. Do I hear a second by Ms. Haney?
Second, yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Pinado.
Yes.
Replat passes 9-0.
If you want the replat to go to council next Tuesday evening, the ordinance needs to be in the mayor's office by Thursday at noon.
By Thursday?
Thursday at noon.
Okay. Next section, large-scale developments, might as well stay up there. L 17-18, MH Real Estates LLC, northeast corner of Wagon Wheel Road and I-49. Concept of detention, also 2 variances, B 17-31, modification of commercial design standards and modification of landscape requirements per Chapter 56, presented by Ozark Civil Engineering.
Yeah, what we have is, like I said, it's on 12.33 acres. We're proposing a U-shaped type building. It's going to consist of an office, 2-story warehouse, and also a shop. It'll be a line shop and a body shop. We have submitted the drainage analysis showing the conveyance of the stormwater on site. We show stormwater detention requirements have been met per your requirements. We don't exceed the pre-development conditions. We are asking for three variances, variance to the interior landscaping. We're asking for variances pertaining to the building, and also there was a variance for the central features and community spaces. I'd be happy to answer any questions as far as engineering. Our client is also here. Be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the building itself and also the business.
Staff comments?
The variances, we have to prove the concept of detention. Before we start this, there are landscaping islands required at a rate of 1 per 15 parking spaces in accordance with Chapter 56. And you have to remember, this is for big trucks. And landscaping islands and big trucks don't really work well. And we have some examples at the new Walmart store where we took some of them out because trucks seem to run over them. Interior parking area landscaping is required in accordance with Chapter 56. The minimum distance between driveways on adjoining properties is 50 feet, and 150 feet on a single track. Measurement is projected curb to projected curb. All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. The development must comply with the City of Springdale commercial design standards. Okay, let's go over the commercial design standards, and as I read these, we can address what each one is different. One is to provide at least 2 of the items listed under the central features, and that's one of the things you're asking not to provide, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you want to explain why?
I think our client could explain better than I can as far as the reasonings behind that.
Alan Cabe with MHC or MH Real Estate. Pretty much the standards for the whatever pedestrian, I can't remember how it's worded, but it's kind of more of a safety issue for us. I mean, our property, it's a truck dealership, truck shop, so all our customers and people coming onto our property are coming in vehicles and mostly large-scale vehicles, so there is no pedestrian traffic, if you will. So including public spaces or public areas for the public to come enjoy, we don't feel like is really fits with what we do on our property and creates a safety issue with how our property is operated as a business. Don't really see how they could adequately be used by the public, how it's intended for in the design requirements.
Okay. Facades over 100 feet in linear length shall incorporate wall projections and/or recesses per commercial design standards. What's the length of the wall if it doesn't have recesses?
The longest distance we have is going to be along the shop, which I think is maybe 300 feet. I'm going off memory here. It doesn't have any breaks. However, we do have, the way the U-shape is, there is difference in elevation in roof lines. I did send in some pictures of some of our other properties to kind of give you a feel of what we look like, and it's not, just a straight concrete wall. We do have textured concrete. We texture and have ephes, and it's different colors, so it definitely breaks itself visually. And we have doors that are translucent, and so I feel like having breaks hurts us.
You're meeting the intent of it in that you're providing breaks, not just a recess, but in different kinds of patterns or different colors or different materials.
And change of materials, correct.
Right, okay. And that's the side that faces?
The longest side faces not the highway, opposite of the highway, east.
Okay, okay. The roof line, you already addressed that. Parapets, gable roofs, high roofs, or dormers shall be used to conceal flat roofs and rooftop equipment from public view. Do you have any rooftop equipment that's not going to be screened?
We do have there will be just your basic exhaust fans like for bathrooms or general exhaust, and then on the paint booth there is equipment on top of that, like exhaust equipment that aren't intended to be screened. Like I said, we feel that the overall appearance of the building overdraws. There's just two pieces of equipment really up there, and it's not, lines and lines of rooftop units. All of our general HVAC is all hung inside above the ceiling or in the shop. So it's just the general exhaust and the, paint booth exhaust is the only things up there.
Is it possible to put up a parapet wall in front of those in those locations just to hide those?
We'd have to review it and see what that does as far as,
Maintenance and
costs and maintenance and everything for how we utilize the building.
Okay.
I will say, I feel that just looking at other similar properties, we do have a lot less rooftop equipment because, like I said, we put our general HVAC inside the building and not on the roof, so it's limited.
What is your predominant exterior building materials?
It is a tilt-up concrete panel with textured ephes and paint.
Can't be smooth face concrete block. We have tilt-up concrete panels in our current ordinance, but when we were writing this, we were talking about those tilt-up panels that are just smooth concrete. Yeah. The new tilt-up walls we see now has a pattern to it. It's just not a smooth.
Yeah, and you can see, like on the front of our building, we do have some architectural changes, like the block architectural at the front entrance. We have storefront, metal overhangs, and soffits that kind of break the overall design. These are just other ones of our facility. You can kind of see in these pictures how that's all tilt up, and they're all textured ephes, different styles.
And we're getting that same look at this location.
Yeah, that one is not painted the same, but if you go back, I don't remember which one you were at, but it'll look like that. Or there's one on there that's actually pretty much a sister building, that one right there. So that's kind of the texture, there's like a change, it's not the same color, kind of patterns vertically. And there's also on the front where there's the offices there's windows, and then the shops have the translucent doors.
And the reason I'm asking is so everybody understands what you're asking for.
Yeah,
because
correct.
Basically you're asking for a waiver of the commercial design standards to meet these standards that you have proposed. And everybody gets an understanding of this. And I want to thank you all for changing it where you don't get them unless we get elevations, because it got everybody's attention for at least a little while. Submit a PDF of the drainage report to engineering, and that may already have been done. Okay. The concept of detention must be approved. The site area of disturbance is greater than 1 acre. A stormwater pollution prevention plan, grading permit application, and $500 fee in accordance with Chapter 107 must be submitted to the planning office prior to final approval of construction plans. Okay.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Are we putting landscaping anywhere else since we're not putting it in the islands? Are we
They
moving
have
it anywhere
grouped
else
their
on the property?
landscaping together. I think they've tried to meet the intent of the landscaping along the street. If you go out there and look at the site from 49, you really can't see it very well. And they have included, did we do some minimal amount of landscaping on the 49th Street side? I don't remember. I've slept once since we talked.
We are showing the perimeter landscaping that we meet those requirements. The interior landscaping is what we're focusing on.
But they've put additional into that along the street and stuff. When you're moving, again, when you're moving trucks around, landscaping and islands are really not conducive to moving
We
trucks
have it on
around.
the perimeter and also around the building.
Right, right.
Fencing requirements, do you have any fencing going on in this area?
Yeah, the intent would be have fencing for security. Along the front, the east side, I don't know the name of the road top of my head, but it would be like a pipe rail fence. And then along the back corners would be a chain link for security, would be the plan.
But it's all commercial around it, so there's no screening requirements because it's commercial to commercial. They're putting up fencing for security reasons. They have a lighting plan. We got all that shows that there's no light pollution to the adjacent. They've done a really good job of fitting this business to this location.
Your signage, oh, I'm sorry.
We're very thankful for this piece of property.
Yeah, we're excited to move to a...
Y'all coming in here, so.
Yeah.
Signage, are we good as far as what's going on the side of the building? And would there be a request in the future as far as larger signing on here? We have a tendency sometimes to get something put in and it's not, especially for you're wanting visibility as far as on I-49, I suspect.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, so right now our plan or intention at this point is on the north two elevations, if you will, on the end of each shop, putting our signage. We're Kenworth and Volvo dealer, so both of those. You saw kind of how the front looks like a MHC, our brand. We are working right now currently with Kenworth and Volvo, the manufacturers we represent, and their requirements. I think we're probably going to have to put some sort of pole signage up, which is going to probably be on the south side. We do have to work with the existing signage easement, if you will, for the billboards, and obviously the codes that, I think it's like 30 feet and the square footage. I don't know the numbers, but.
Okay.
There's not the same height restrictions in this location as there is in.
I would just be aware as far as number of signs and things like that in the future. Make sure y'all plan those out well in advance in that whole piece. We've had some other opportunities of other properties in the city, and I agree with Mr. Powell. I'm very thankful as far as this development going in.
Yep.
But just make sure you guys are thinking through the signage is always a big deal.
Now, are you closing the location on Sunset and moving your operation out there, or is this a new operation coming to?
The intent is to move the operation from our current location to this, and we have no set plans for the existing. Right now, we don't. I'm assuming we'll sell it, but we don't know.
Couldn't be an issue of getting out on 412 from your current location, could it be?
Right now?
Hard to get in and out from
Yeah,
that
it's a
location,
little
is
bit.
it not? Yes.
Vivi, did you have
Well,
something?
yeah, the area around the detention pond,
Mhm.
is that all going to be like grass or what is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we show everything to the north of the concrete paving. That'll be grass.
Okay, so that's going to have sidewalk along it?
We're showing a sidewalk extending along the entire east side of the property for connectivity.
So in that area, Patsy, is a central feature would be like a bench, right?
That, it could be, yeah.
So why would there be an issue with putting a bench there? And the reason I say is there's a convenience store not far. You're going to have workers that will probably just walk up to the convenience store, perhaps on a lunch break or in a given area where they could actually sit. It's away from traffic. It's not close to it's green space anyway.
That space we own currently. Right now, we're developing what you see now, and the intent would be in the future as we grow to expand that into parking, and if we have to, make it underground detention at that time. But that green space is just there because that's the size we need now, and we bought more knowing that we would need to, advance it in the future. As far as employees working, we provide They don't really leave. We have, break rooms there on site, lunchrooms for them. When you say a bench, like on our property for our people, or for like the public walking down the sidewalk, I don't.
Well, it might be used by either way. I mean, I've spent time in places where there's buildings like that, and I have taken advantage of having a bench or some kind of central feature that can be. But then I've also seen workers come out and use those spaces, and so, that's the intent of having the central feature. To me, it's not a lot to put into it, and yet you would fulfill that.
So I guess just so I'm clear, where the bench would be, where at again?
It could be
where are you
along
saying?
the sidewalk, right? Along the sidewalk, close to, it could be anywhere in that green space adjacent to the sidewalk, but it would be away from any of your truck traffic.
Right. It's also in the direction towards the dead end. If it's as simple as to please the community and everything, yeah, for sure we can put a bench in. I guess my argument would be I don't know how much use it would get, and I understand the intent of what you're saying, and it could be used. In my opinion, we don't have much foot traffic on our properties, and the only thing that way is right now is undeveloped and is kind of a circle. I don't know what the future, plans are for it, but I guess what I'm saying is I'd hate to put the investment as something we're putting it in here for an intent and then it never gets used. And in my opinion of how our properties are, especially in an area like this,
I guess what I've seen is someone brings a truck in or they work there and they go to the convenience store because there is one already there, and then they come back and they sit and eat their lunch and snack, and then they come back and check on their vehicle on a nice day. And so, if you were to use your argument, then why would you put a sidewalk?
Well, they're required to put a sidewalk
Yeah,
in.
we have to have a
They're required to put the sidewalk in, too.
But the central feature is a requirement, too.
Is it a deciding factor of whether this thing needs to move forward or not, whether we get a couple of benches? It's nice to have those in an area where there's a lot more traffic and those kind of things. I'd be one of the ones that push for it. You might take that into consideration when you come back to expand in that area and see if we could address it then, but
we're not going to let a bench stop
stop
anything up.
Yeah. This is one of those areas that's a little bit different than if it was downtown or on 412. There's not a whole lot of stuff going on out there right now, so.
I did have a question on the concept of detention. Is that just for this property, or would it be for future expansion that you'd have to come back in and do additional work?
It would have to be readdressed at the time of future expansion to do it correctly, especially if we go underground. Right now, the detention meets the
Just for this
conditions
property. Okay.
for the amount of impervious material that we've added to this project. If that
Yeah, and
answers
they
your
could very
question.
possibly have to go in and put some underground and not want to use, not waste all that area in the detention pond, yeah.
That's correct.
That might be the wrong term to say waste, but anyway, sorry, didn't think about that one.
Okay,
Utilize
thank
it
you.
differently.
You're welcome. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said it would be utilizing the area differently.
Yeah,
It still
right.
would combine the use.
Right, yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? So the first item we need to do is the concept of detention. Be a
Call for the vote on the concept of detention.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Benado,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Concept of detention passes 9-0. Let's see.
Oh, the variance for modification.
Yes, variance for modification of commercial design standards and landscape requirements. Be called for the vote.
Are you going to take those
Oh.
together?
Can we take them together?
That's fine.
Yep.
Yep.
Call for the vote
Call
on the
for vote by
variances
Mrs. Haney.
together.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Benado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Variance is passed 9-0. And motion for large scale.
Subject
Motion
to
to
staff
approve
comment.
large scale, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Powell, second by Mrs. Haney.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Large scale passes 9-0. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next large scale, 17-19, White Cap, 4784 North Thompson, concept of detention, and variance B 17-35, variance of modification of commercial design standards, presented by Gray Rock LLC.
Good evening. My name is Dirk Thibodeau. I'm representing the owner for the new facility. The new facility is a White Cap HD Supply warehouse located on North 71. We're requesting your approval of what's been presented before you. We are asking for a couple of variances. They are similar to what was asked for before, modifications to the architectural elements on the exterior. We're asking for a variance on their storage in the rear, so we want chain link fencing. And we are asking for a modification to the landscaping on the perimeter. And we're asking for all of the parking to be in front of the facility rather than splitting partial parking in back to the front. The rear is all storage.
Staff comments?
Okay, once again, we have concept of detention, and we'll go through these variances the same way we did the others.
Thank you.
All open storage areas must be screened with an 8-foot opaque screening fence. Chain link is not a permitted material. You're asking to be able to do 8-foot chain link or 6-foot?
8 or 6. I'm sorry, I'm not positive. 8.
8-foot in black chain link.
Yes, so we're requesting black chain link. And specifically, the reason we're asking for chain link rather than wood is that with forklifts and storage material and how that all gets moved around, bumping of fences does not work at all with, the chain link gives that, the fence can move on us, and so it doesn't cause destruction, and you end up with a better product. But we do want to keep it aesthetically pleasing, so that's why we're going with the black chain link. So it goes invisible.
All comments from utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. Hatching on the site makes the text difficult to read, so we need to kind of work with that because it's kind of hard to see what we're doing.
Sure.
No more than 60% of the off-street parking area for the entire property can be located between the front facade within the front yard of the principal building and the abutting street. How you're proposing to put all of it in there?
Yes, and that's what we're requesting, is that all of the parking is in front rather than some of it in the rear.
Okay, facades over 100 feet in length shall incorporate wall projections and/or recesses per Springdale commercial design standards. So what are you asking for? What's the length of the building? What kind of changes are you proposing with color, materials, anything like that?
The length of the building is 178 feet. The width is 112. Across the front, we do have different projections and materials. It's brick, metal, ephes, the awnings, and I think I have some color renderings as well. The sides of the building are brick and metal.
What's the depth of that brick that comes around the corner?
What is the depth of the brick?
How far back into that 100-foot wall on the side where you're showing the left elevation, how far back does that wrap around?
Ooh, my guess is I'm really guessing, it appears to be around 15 feet.
Okay, then the predominant exterior building material is going to be a metal building with those changes that you have outlined on here, right?
Correct.
Okay. Need to note that modified curb is required at the drives. Need to obtain an HTD permit for all work done on their right-of-way. The concept of detention must be approved. An easement shall be provided and plans for detention facilities. Minimum 20-foot wide drainage easement shall be provided around the 100-year flood pool connecting the tributary pipes and the discharge system along the most passable route of piping systems. Ownership of the detention pond will remain with the land.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, you're asking for your commercial design standard revision or variance is for the building to look just like that. Clayton, do you have any color versions of that?
Yeah, that's what Bill was asking when we presented.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, see if we can get the color versions up here so you can see what it looks like.
Any questions or comments from the audience? to the commission?
This is the side that faces it to,
So this side, that would be the north side right there that you see. And then the other view is of the south side, which is adjacent to the pool company.
the south end of the building. All of this is the front that faces 271.
Yes.
This is the south end of it. The north end is where you have the white cap that has all the other.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
door, is that a metal door or is that a glass door?
It's a metal door. It's a functional, it's so when you pick up materials, that door opens and then it gives you access into the warehouse portion.
Okay, and are you asking for any variances to the landscaping requirements?
The landscape requirement on the perimeter landscaping, because we're asking that the perimeter landscaping not go all the way to the back. This is the old drive-in site, and so it's quite large, and there's also major easements that go across there, and so we weren't doing anything beyond the easements.
Okay, so are you asking for the perimeter landscaping to be limited to the disturbed area?
Yes.
So the area in the back that has the chain link fence around it, will it have landscaping on the perimeter on the north and the south sides of that?
Yes, it does. And so if you see the jog and the property line, I can see the easement lines. I don't know if you can or not, but there's
I know they're on there so I can see them.
Yeah, there's a major gas easement and a major electric easement. You can't put trees in those areas anyway, so it stops anything from being put there. So we put the perimeter landscaping up to this part, and then all across the front, and then the interior, meeting all that.
Clayton, can you go to the landscaping plan, please? There you can see.
Yep.
There is two.
Now, it is requested that we limit the landscaping along the perimeter as well. I met it all the way to the gas easements, but it's been asked of me from the owner that we consider not going that far because of the business, like to the south of us, there's the pool company there, and the question is, what are we screening if we put trees on this portion?
Are you storing material in that area between the gas line easement and the drive?
Bill is saying yes. I'm not understanding the question.
Really extending this extends your landscaping to the edge of the area that you're actually going to use.
Yes.
Okay. You're asking for it to be pulled back how far?
The pool building is just about even with the building we're building, and it's right on the property line. Yeah, just right along there. It's right on the property line, and you know, we're screening ourselves more from the pool from there than they are from us.
Right.
So I mean, it just doesn't seem to make much sense to put those there. On the north side, you might be aware that a trucking company has bought that piece next to Graham Road, and they are stacking as tight as they can get in their trailers for tractors. So that's actually, I mean, it's.
But it's not in Springdale, though.
Excuse me?
Is it in Bethel Heights?
No.
The property to the north is Springdale.
Yeah.
There's one piece of property that is still Springdale.
Okay, because I thought it was the next
And
one.
I think Graham Road is and they are on Graham Road.
Okay, so they're parking trucks in there now?
Yes, and I think there's only qualifies for that.
There's a sod business right there, too. so.
Sod business is not,
No, that's across Graham
sod
Road.
business I know is in Bethel Heights. I thought.
And across the street to the east is the two heavy equipment dealerships.
So you're asking not to screen adjacent to the pool place?
Yes.
Yes. And let me say this. These people at HD, and you probably don't know what they do because they're out here on Elm Springs Road and been here for years, but they're handling heavy rebar and all kinds of fabricating stuff for the concrete industry with big forklifts. They touch that wooden fence, it's gone. And if you haven't dealt with forklift people, they sometimes are a little careless. I don't think a wooden fence would last very long.
So will they be moving from their present location to here?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And so that's going to be a.
Yes.
Yes. And their storage area is significantly larger than it is now. They're shoehorned in, and I think they want to be here a long time.
Oh, I know
We hope they do.
I know they're cramped there where they're at now. I've been there several times.
Okay, so your variance request for modification of the commercial design standards is to have the building look at what we just looked at,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And are we revising the landscaping plan to take this additional off? Because I don't see it on your variance request, but I may be looking in the wrong place
Well,
too.
part of the variance is modification to the perimeter landscaping because we didn't take the landscaping all the way to the back of the property. The property actually goes another several acres to the west. And so I was already asking from a variance for the perimeter landscaping to stop where I'm showing it. What I'm asking you here at the podium is that we stop it at a little bit less than what I'm showing you.
Okay, okay, so we're talking about basically to the western edge of the building?
Yes.
Right there. That's
Yes, ma'am.
where the perimeter landscaping?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what your request is now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just on the south side?
Just on the south side. North side will stay just like it is. Okay?
Clayton, can you go back to the color drawing? I'm interested as far as the south wall. So we've had similar buildings like this, and I'm thinking of Elliott Electric, for example. And they made some modifications as far as some breaks on their side walls, as far as vertically up, and that's as far as aesthetic type rock or brick or things like that. Is that a possibility?
Anything's possible. There's no question about that. We're hoping, we actually copied this off of a building that's in Central Florida. They have some pretty strict ordinances down there, and we copied the colors and everything from there, and we just thought it was a good-looking building. If you don't think that means, particularly in this neighborhood, a really nice-looking building, that if we have to do something to it, we will.
Yeah, we were trying not to deviate from their prototype as little as possible. And this is the prototype.
A seaside pool, basically, like,
Yes.
I mean, it's just right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I don't think
Seaside
there's-
pool would actually screen most of the wall that we're talking about.
I mean, you're talking feet, just a minimum amount of feet, like less than 30 feet.
Well, no, it's a little bit deceiving because what you have here is a 24-foot drive aisle and then there's some green space and that's where you hit the property line. But once you hit the
Okay.
property line, their building is on it.
But in the pros driveway, you're talking
Yes.
just very minimal.
Yes,
feet.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I respect as far as keeping it consistent as far as for the company and things like that, but for the city, we've done a good job in recent years as far as addressing a lot of the long walls as far as for metal is concerned, and we're not anti-metal in any way whatsoever, but there does need to be some additional breaks in there, and that would just be an additional request that I have is on the south and north wall, just from a consistency sake, and it looks very well as far as other buildings that we've done within the city, as far as having those types of breaks.
So are you talking about a brick wainscot that goes down the side of that building on the north and the south
Talking
side?
about a vertical break in
Break
that
in
wall.
in that wall?
Yes.
How wide?
You guys define that.
No, I think the way it is now does not follow the intent of our design standards. And
Right.
so we need to get a little closer to that, because otherwise what we have is, I don't know how to describe it other than the old TV westerns where the front of the buildings look really nice and then there's nothing behind. It's just a fake wall. And so that's what we, people have come before us and they talk about, well, nobody's going to see it, the building behind it's going to hide it, and they leave off the landscaping, they leave off the brick, and that's what it ends up looking like. And the other buildings in town that are coming in and following our guidelines, they, or following the intent of our guidelines, because there are some people that have different architectural design, but it still follows that. It protects the investments that they're making in the community.
Sure, I understand.
Could you take that ephes, that's ephes on this end? Could you take a panel, say, split the difference in the middle of that and make it 10 or 15 feet wide that looks similar to that as a break in that
Yeah, and that's
wall?
what I was
And it
thinking.
doesn't have to be brick, but it breaks up that wall.
I would agree with that. And I would think that's completely doable.
And
to start
on
breaking
both
up that
ends.
space. Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
instead of
Right.
putting brick, it's a little bit easier to do that, whatever that projection is in the front, so that it's consistent, that it looks like that break is on both the north and the south walls.
And it gives a repeat, right?
Right.
Yes.
right. Is that going to be acceptable? Okay.
Okay.
Is the sign you have on that side there, is that the only signage you'll have on your building?
On the building, yes, there will be a pole sign out front.
There again, we're not in the overlaid street, we're not in a,
Well, if they were going to put a sign on the side, it would be nice if they had
yeah,
that same look.
and you could do that on the side, I guess, if you wanted to put a sign on those panels on the side as you put it. Yeah, I mean, we don't usually ask people to put more signs up. That's not something we normally do.
I think it
No, we don't
guides
normally
them
do
to the
that.
door, so it's,
Okay, so we're going to write a modification to your design standard request
Thank you.
to allow for a panel on the north and south walls
Correct.
that, I gotta write this down so I remember, that mirrors the treatment on the southwest, on the south corner of that building, 10, 15 feet wide. What is a standard panel width? You know, you can send us a drawing that shows what it is.
Right.
Don't come back with 6 inches or a foot or 2 foot, okay? All right.
Anything else?
I have two quick questions. One, all of the parking in the front of the building, your deliveries will all be made up front, is that correct?
No, sir.
Where will they be if there's no parking or no concrete behind, or no drive aisles or anything behind the store, or is there one?
May I
There
answer
is.
that, please?
Absolutely.
You come around to the mic.
Pardon
We're
me.
not hearing you
And I'm
very
Bill
well.
McClarden. I'm actually going to end up being one of the owners of the property. So these guys have, again, are more of the concrete, heavy construction kind of stuff. So they're going to be bringing big, and we're building really heavy concrete or asphalt drives, are going to be coming around with those big trucks circling all the way around, and they just didn't want any cars back there because they're going to end up being collateral damage.
Okay, so you have a drive aisle around the back of the store, is that correct?
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
going to be heavy-duty storage and heavy-duty drive-through so they can get around, and there's this one in the front would be for smaller stuff. I mean, they have ladders and that sort of stuff in there, and that's probably where that's going to come out of. But most of what they do comes from the back.
Right.
And
And
they'll-
moving
and
all
we-
the parking to the front has met the ratio?
Yeah, I think we exceeded, don't we? I
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Clayton, can you go back to the layout?
think there's 43 spaces there. I think it makes the retail.
Yeah, the number of
Parking's
parking
fine.
spaces wasn't an issue.
The only other comment I had was, I certainly understand the fence comment. I would tell you that we've asked a great number of people who come before us to follow the design standards and put the wood up. If somebody's tearing your wood up, they're going to get paid for it to fix it, and if they don't fix it, they're going to get a better forklift driver. But at the end of the day, I don't know that fencing is the right way to go to it to try and anticipate a problem that hasn't shown up yet. I'd prefer the wood fence before the steel fence, before the wire fence.
Okay, so that drive that goes all the way around is heavy-duty concrete, because that's where you're moving.
That is correct, and there are
Heavier
gates,
equipment,
yes.
yes.
And honestly, we tried getting the storage area where it was just behind the building, so we wouldn't have the chain link fence running with the street. So it's just containing the area in the back. Honestly, I don't think you're ever going to see this fence, how the angles work, and so it really is just the best material we thought for this purpose. I honestly would rather it than the wood fence, because I think wood fences over time don't hold up and don't look well. But
so the fence is going to go to where the end of the landscaping is?
Fence goes from the corner of the building straight back. And the fence is in the building.
Heads
So
gates
that's
across the
what
drive.
you're seeing is chain link fence, but there are gates that truck, yes, sir. So what you're seeing is the gate in the gate, yes. So that fence is only on that section. Again, from the street, as far as visibility, I'm not sure at those angles even you're gonna catch that, and especially with that black chain link fence. I really think it's gonna go invisible,
And those
so.
projections that you're putting out on each side of the north and south
But-
walls will help hide that too, right?
Right.
But if you do that, then I would be towards getting the perimeter landscaping all the way to the back, even with the chain link fence.
Their request is to remove it, though.
I'm sorry.
I mean, what do you?
Your request is to limit the perimeter
Yes.
landscaping to the edge of the building as we just discussed,
Oh, oh, oh.
but to make the changes in the two sidewalks.
Yes,
That's where we stand right now,
yes.
with the black chain link fence.
Yes, ma'am.
That's their variance request right now.
is to stop the fencing at the drive. Is that what you're saying?
Stop the perimeter,
I mean, not
the landscaping
landscape.
perimeter at the edge of the building on the south side, continue what it is on the front. Use the black chain link fence all the way around the storage area and do the projections on the north and south walls. That's what your variance request for commercial design standards is right now.
And while I understand those requests completely, I just want to put before the commission that if we're going to do that, that's fine, but it's going to be very hard to hold other people to a higher standard, the design standards of the city, if we're going to do that. I'm fine with it either way, I really am, but then let's change the design standards so we're all not having to go through this exercise every time a larger product comes before us.
And that would be changing and allowing black chain link fence as a permitted fencing material, which we don't have now.
Right.
Correct.
So what is the material that's making the chain link fence black?
They rubber coat
Is it an epoxy or rubber?
They rubber coat it.
And just for the record, and I know just because it's there doesn't mean it's always going to be there, but we have chain link fence all the way down the south and all the way down the north. It's already there, not that, it's just there. I mean, it's an area where there's heavy equipment dealers and well, you know the area. Heavy trucking next door. There's just already a lot of chain link there. I mean, we can put wooden fence inside the chain link fence. That's basically what we're doing, if we had to do that.
So the chain link is on someone else's property or it's on your property?
It's on the property line.
I understand. I'm saying, is it on your property or is it somebody else's fence?
Sir, I don't know the answer to that. It's,
Okay.
I
So it's
don't
not
know
what you're
whether-
building, I guess, is what I'm trying to understand. Was it
It's
put up with your
existing
building?
fence,
Okay.
yes.
It's already there.
Okay.
You're not disturbing any of that existing fence.
No,
No.
no.
Right.
Your perimeter landscaping on the inside, on your side of the
Yes,
fence, on both
That's,
sides of
that's
that.
correct.
There's a way to make chain link opaque with the things that slide in there?
You know,
Is that the issue?
we talked about that, but realistically, when you start doing that, you really are just drawing your eye to something that you're saying you're nervous about. That's why I'm telling you, this black chain link, it's the craziest thing, but it will go invisible. You will not see it. It holds up, it's clean, it's crisp. A wood fence in 10 years after it's been hit and it's fallen apart, I think it's a good-looking product, so I think you should consider it. I understand where your design standards are,
Our
and that's why
screening
we're
ordinance
asking.
doesn't allow you to put
Right.
slats in for that to
Yeah.
become a screening material.
And they tend to not hold up over time also. They tear, you lose them, and you end up with, this buck-tooth looking thing.
Right, okay.
The idea is to screen it, and that's why we went with those kind of materials that actually created a screen. But this doesn't have residential on each side. It's
That is
commercial
correct.
on
It's
both
heavy
sides.
commercial.
Right, yeah.
Any other questions?
I would just say, I would probably be in favor of the landscaping if we're gonna go with the chain link. Just to, just a compromise, instead of let's not have either, let's have one or the other, right? That's where I'd be.
Okay, the question becomes, this is all packaged into one package. I'm going to take a chance on it getting voted down for all of that with a black chain link fence and not all the landscaping or not? That's your question. That's
I'm
your call.
liking these trees.
Forgive me, this is the first, I haven't been here a long time, Patsy, I apologize. So we make this request, and it's either all or nothing, if-
Right now, it's packaged together as all one variance request. Do you want us to take it on individual items, or do you want to leave it packaged together?
I think I'd rather, if we can do it individually, I would prefer a decision individually,
Okay.
because, I
So
mean,
basically, we have the parking in the front. That is one part of the request. The building elevations to be as we just discussed with those modifications. The perimeter landscaping being revised to take that portion off on the side, and the use of black chain link fence. Those are the 4 items that are part of the variance request. Did I miss anything?
no, may I, again, and I'm sorry for sounding a little bit dumb, but you'll vote for each one of those individually, and if they are voted down, then we have to comply exactly to the development criteria. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
How do you spell perimeter?
IMETER.
I-E, okay. Sorry, I couldn't figure out what that word was after I wrote it down. Okay. Okay, so we're going to look at all four of these as separate items, right?
Misha?
Question.
I'm sorry. Can I just make one quick statement? I apologize. I heard the word industrial area, and there's large stuff around it, but I want to remind you that we are in another area in the city of Springdale that is a lot of industrial type of corporations and businesses that we are trying to address the screening issues that we're having, that they didn't screen there, where they have the chain link, and we still have some issues that we're dealing with. So as you make that decision on this one, remember we're dealing with it in a different area and trying to backtrack a little bit, so.
Could I have one more request? I'm just going to go for it all. I would like to request that you don't listen to me any longer. Let's go ahead and keep the trees all along the south as strong, and we're not asking to reduce the number from what you see right here.
Okay, so we're taking out that revised perimeter request. So now we're down to 3.
Now can we take them all together?
Can we take them, that's the parking all in the front,
Yes,
the building as we've all agreed to, and the black chain link fence.
thank you.
You want them all voted on together? Or do you still want them separate?
I don't know that I understand the difference, so.
If you vote on them all together and it does not pass, then you have to comply with every single one of those on.
Then I guess we'll do an individual. That would make more sense, but
Okay?
Okay, ready?
No, say those again.
Okay, the first one's going to be a call for the vote on all of the parking being in the front. Okay, that one we all understand really easy.
Parking in front.
That's a call.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, Brian's got a question.
The fencing issue, if I remember what Misha brought up, we were looking at that fence along the viewable parts of the buildings, right? Along parallel with the roadway.
In a lot of cases, yes, it is.
That is, and this one is
Right.
not.
Right.
It's directly behind the buildings, not to be viewed.
Misha, is that
correct. And using the building as the corner post of the fence,
Right, and
basically.
in most cases, we are looking at those fences being where you can see them. They're either at the front of the edge of the building, somewhere in the middle of that building, and you can see it from the street. This one's not. You can't see it from the street because it's all behind the building. And you're saying that, so we're establishing a reason why, if this is approved, that's different from some of the other areas too. Okay?
We're addressing what you guys are asking for and some other things as well. That's why
I
it's on
understand.
the record on that.
I understand.
So, okay.
Okay, so this one is the call for the question on the parking all being in the front.
Call for the vote on the parking.
Wait, so parking in front's the first one we're doing?
Right.
Okay.
Who did the call?
Already
Call for
did.
vote by Mrs.
Okay. Dee call for this. All right. Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Hang on,
Mueller?
hang on.
Yes.
Eh?
We went before, because the first thing we had to do was the
Concept
concept.
of detention
Oh,
first.
we'll come back, pick it up.
Yeah, that,
Just want to make sure.
Forget where we are.
I'm on a roll. We
We
need
about
to do
got
this.
everybody understanding this part. Let's go back up on this.
He
till we
holds
get
me
this done.
accountable to
I'm
those
sorry.
things,
I'm
so-
sorry.
Parker?
My fault.
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. So
Okay.
the next one's
Parking
black.
variance passes 9-0.
Okay, the next one is the building elevations.
Well, okay. Bill.
As we modified them with the panels to the north and the south,
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Call for the vote on the new
Building
building
elevations. Okay.
elevations.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Okay.
Passes 9-0.
Okay, the last one is the use of the black chain link fence for the storage area, which is all behind the building.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Powell.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
So we could have all done this under one, right?
You made me nervous.
Well, I will say the landscaping helped.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Thank you. So
Okay,
that
now we
passes
have
9-0.
Call for the vote
So
for the concept of detention.
we have a call for the vote for concept of detention by Mr. Powell.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Howell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Concept of detention passes 9-0. Large scale.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mrs. Haney,
Second.
second by Mr. Covert.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Large scale passes 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I know you've been working on this property for a long time, so it's nice to see something going there, so. Thank you. Next large scale, 17-20, Harbor Town Homes, southwest corner of Harbor and Gibbs. And variances, 17-38, variance for reduction of front setback from 30 to 20 feet. Variance for reduction of parking spaces from
72 normal, 3 handicap to
50
50 and 2.
with 2 ADA. Variance for reduction of green space from 20% to 15%, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with Engineering Services. This is a similar concept to the Oriole Street project we brought before you last month. Couple similarities and a couple differences. We're requesting a front variance from the 30 to 20. Just trying to make that form-based look. Front doors toward the street, parking in the rear. We are going to landscape the front with trees is on our landscape plan.
Did it address the drainage issue? Did it help with the drainage issue on the back too?
Yes.
Okay. That was
and
one
it
of the
got
other
it's got us away from our north neighbor. I mean, he's fairly close as well, so it kind of gives us a little more separation up back there. So that did help with the drainage.
Concrete, still a concrete channel?
It's not that horseshoe look, but it is just a flat bottom channel, so there's not that drop there, so we don't have to have that dual wall set up like we were thinking. So
Because without the variance, we were going to have a situation where we had a concrete.
kind of a horseshoe look or a U-shaped channel that was
Along the
about
back,
2 foot deep on the north, close to the north line, and it's a safety concern. So, we discussed it with Patsy, and we moved the buildings closer to the road, and that's the reason for the variance, for that variance.
Okay, the density question, in order to get the density, because you rezoned it to MF 12. So you started with 8 units to get the additional density. They're doing townhomes, which allows up to a maximum of 20%. The materials that are being used for the construction of the units themselves can bring up to another 20%. And then they're adding some additional amenities.
Yep. So I
tot
think
lots
we're,
and- yeah.
as far as the buildings go, we have about 65 to 70%, 65% of brick facade, which is over the 50%. So we're looking for, an additional 15% on the facades, which translates into 50%, a 15% density increase. And then what we did for the amenities, for 25 units, there's 1 recreational amenity required, and we are proposing 2 additional recreational amenities, which we don't have the luxury of the neighborhood greens or a larger tract where we can have kind of a, what the neighborhood greens gives us is a 20% increase, but it's on a 10-acre tract that has kind of a centered green space. So what we tried to do was make a green area on the western side that will be fenced, kind of a play area for the neighborhood. And then we added some picnic areas and grills in between some of the units. And that's what we're proposing to get that extra 20%. So we've got, my calculation, I think staff's was around 38. I was at 35-ish. So on the increased density side, so I feel like we're proposing 20% density increase with the amenities and then 15% with the facade to get us to that 35 or 25 units on the 2.3 acres.
Which you're at 11, how many units per
It's
acre? 11.2, is that what you're
11,
talking?
yes.
It's 11.2. So I think the intent of the ordinance, y'all remember we wrote multifamily design standards many, many years ago and haven't tested them too much. So they have met the intent of what that is in providing as much green space as possible, as providing the type of development that we were looking for, putting the parking in the back, and adding the amenities that we had space for. So I think, we've met the intent of the ordinance itself. Parking, the number of spaces is down. I think this is similar to the one that we are looking at on
It is,
Oriole Street.
it's two
the-
spaces per unit. We have 25 units, 50 parking spaces.
This is all one ownership with a manager that lives on site, so we have a little bit more control over that. The developer is required to dedicate right-of-way of an abutting street in conformance with the City of Springdale Master Street Plan. A separate dedication document shall be submitted to the city for filing, and that's Gibbs Road that we have. But you already have it on the plan, don't you?
It's on the plan. I don't believe it's been.
Yeah, we have to do it with a formal
Paperwork.
document. All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. We just went over the incentives portion of it. Minimum curb radius is 25 feet, minor streets 50 feet on a collector street. Submit a preliminary drainage report. Need to show mitigation of post-development runoff. The site area of disturbance is greater than 1 acre. Grading permit application $500 fee in accordance with Chapter 107 must be submitted to the planning office prior to final approval of construction plans.
I discussed that with engineering. We did, on our resubmittal, address those items, and I believe engineering's on board with.
Okay. You just haven't
items.
submitted for your
Not the grading
permit
permit,
because it
correct.
hasn't been approved yet.
I agree, those items have been addressed.
Okay.
Anything else? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, it's to the commission. The drive coming into this, is that in between the two drives for Hellstrom?
Yes. You can kind of see the southern, or the eastern one where the
Where the curb
curb turns out.
radius is in. It's just about as far that direction as they could get it, where they could meet the standard for.
Yeah, I mean, we could kind of modify that location, but what we tried to do was give a larger green area right there. That was our intent.
Yeah, it's probably more for the city to kind of look at traffic patterns and things like that. It's a really dangerous area right there because you got a left turn lane going into the school. I mean, it's a lot of confusion right there, but it's probably something to look at in the future. I mean,
They got to have 2 access points to meet the fire code. So, we had that issue. We talked about making it one way where you could come out on Gibbs Road, and that would be the only way. We didn't go that route. I think it's an issue. The whole thing is an issue out there. Twice a day.
yes,
Twice a day.
that's all it takes.
I know.
I know, so that would just be my comment.
Was Gibbs Road going to be improved?
They have to improve their portion of it. They're half the street, the width of it is.
There's not much left after the intersection that's already been there, and then our short portion there, so.
So they're doing their half
We
of the street.
we
is
are
the answer.
showing, I think the curb actually does go almost to our driveway, so we're adding sidewalk and our driveway.
We're not asking for any waivers of street improvements. Sidewalk's already on the Harbor Street side, so. Can we do all these variances together? Comfortable with that?
Call for the vote on the variances.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney?
Parsley?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Variance has passed 9-0. Large scale.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney, Have a second?
Second, please.
Second by Mr. Covert.
Benado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes. Large scale passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next section, Board of Adjustments, B 17-30, Brian and Janelle Hudson, 2427 Willow Bend Circle. Variance reduction of side setback from 8 feet to 4 feet. Variance reduction of rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. Presented by Brian Hudson.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hudson. This is my wife, Jonelle. We live at 2427 Willow Bend Circle. What we'd like to do is put a small swimming pool in our backyard, roughly 16 by 28 feet. We're asking, as previously stated, a variance for reduction on the side setback from 8 feet to 4. And then we're also asking a variance for reduction on the rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet.
Staff comments? Hudson?
Have you determined if there are any utilities in either one of those setbacks?
To my knowledge, there are no utilities in those setbacks. The main utilities run the north property line.
Are there utility easements that are platted on the lot itself? Even if there's not any in there, do you know?
I'm not aware of any easements, ma'am.
Okay. Clayton, did we look at this to see if there were any easements? Because we can't grant you the variance till we know that the easements have been vacated. Checking.
No problem.
You know what lot number it is? Does it say?
58.
Okay, so the rear setback variance can't be granted until we know that the utility companies is acceptable with vacating a portion of that if you're going to get into that utility easement.
Okay.
And the side setback variance, is it on, which side is it on?
It'd be on the east side.
Okay, and there appears to be a 5-foot easement on that side too.
Okay.
Okay, so what we need to do is table this. You need to come to the office. We need to give you the procedure where you need to contact the utility companies
Okay.
and see if they're willing to. If there's nothing in it, sometimes they will, and as long as they're willing to do that, then we don't have a problem. Clayton may know something.
There's a 10-foot utility easement. They're requesting 10 feet.
Okay, but are they going to be close? I was assuming they were moving it as close to the back as you can.
What, as far as the pool goes?
Right.
So where the pool would be, so for us to be compliant where the pool would be, you're coming like 2 feet off my bedroom window. So we're just trying to kind of more or less adjust it.
Okay.
So
And
it's
that
not
10 feet includes a deck.
4-foot deck.
A 4-foot
Okay,
deck,
we can
yeah.
go ahead and take action on this, and then if it doesn't fit, have to have a utility easement approved.
Okay.
I mean, vacated, then we can go through that process.
Sure.
So don't tell your pool company
Oh, no.
to start.
Which side are you asking for the side setback?
Put it on the east.
On the east side.
East side. So you need to modify that request to 5 feet because we can't give you that other foot because it's in utilities.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we request that other foot?
We can do it here.
Not unless the utility
I mean, if
easement
we
is
ask
vacated.
them. Okay.
Right, right.
That's fair.
Okay, so if we reduce the request to a 4-foot side,
Okay.
I'm sorry, a 5-foot side, then that doesn't get into the utility easement, and we can go ahead and do the 20 to 10. We just have to make sure you're not into the utility easement. Hey, Ed, have you looked at this? Did they come get a permit yet?
Nope.
No. Yeah, that's why we're
Okay,
here.
okay. Okay, so you need to get with Ed with a drawing so that he knows whether we get into it or not.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair.
That'll work.
Okay.
The good news is, by the time we normally see these, people have been swimming in it for 5 years, so thanks for bringing us to us early.
Try to get on the front end of this.
Any questions or comments from the audience to the commission?
Call for the vote and taking both of them together with the change to the 5-foot.
Okay, call for a vote by Mrs. Haney. We're taking both together with the change at 5-foot side.
Powell,
Yes.
Eiler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado.
Yes.
Variance is passed 9-0. Thank you. Let's see, next one's done. B 17-33, Sean Bagwell, 3336 Eagle Crest Drive. Variance reduction of side setback from 8 feet to 4.5 feet. Variance reduction of rear setback from 20 feet to 8.6 feet, presented by Sean Bagwell.
Hello, I'm Sean Bagwell. What I've done is I put a portable barn on the back corner of my lot, and as you can see, my lot angles. Last summer, we finished a pool, so this was the only spot I could actually make it. I did make it portable. Also got electricity running to it. My permits came out, approved everything. They did a disconnect on the outside of the barn by a panel. That way, they said if anything ever does come through my easement, we could disconnect the barn, move it, they could do the work, and then we could set it back. I'm
That's
just,
coming.
See, we found this when we came out to do an electrical permit when they were connecting electricity to the building. The issue here is that there's the 4.5 feet on the side setback, is that's in the fire separation distance, which means then you'd have to put a rated wall in order to build there.
On the inside.
Well, you have to,
Are you talking about the sheet rock?
well, a rated wall is a little more than sheet rock. It's 5/8 inch sheet rock on the inside, it's 5/8 inch exterior sheet rock underneath your sheathing. It's very hard to do on a pre-manufactured building. So if you could move the building over, it might be able to work, but there again, I mean, that's the issue as far as the building department would be concerned, is that, and of course, you would have to get a permit for that building because it was built without a permit, so anything over 120 square feet.
Speak into the mic.
I'm sorry.
I originally had a permit 2 summers ago, and I was going to do a permit building, and at the time, I measured everything out, and I had called back up to the permit department, and they had said that it was going to be hard to do because I was going to have to get approval through the electrical companies and all that, which I don't have any lines going through there. We got all that done when we did the pool. So that being said, they said we would suggest you doing a portable building. That way it can be moved. And I do apologize. I did not go back and get a new permit for this building. My permit had expired because
Does it meet the size of a portable building?
It's a 15 by 18.
It's 15 by 18, which is a little bit too big. What's that come out to being? I don't do my math real good. 15 by 20 is 300, so it'd be about twice the size of what's allowed by ordinance.
So if you built a portable building that met the size of a portable building, then you could have moved it back and forth. When you put power to it, that it becomes not a portable building.
Once you put power to it, it's no longer a portable.
Right.
And
Even
is it
though
in the
the-
easement? I didn't even check. Is it in the utility easement? That's why it's portable? Yeah, so you can't even, it won't be portable once you bring electricity to it. And it's too large to be on top of their easement, yeah. Yeah.
And your variance request didn't address the size. It only addressed the
Yes, ma'am.
the location, right? Okay. How tall is it?
8 feet, I believe. 10, maybe 10 feet, I'm sorry.
It's got a bit of a ditch.
That's true, yes.
So if you look at this picture, yeah, it's, what size is your fence?
6 feet.
So it's probably 12, maybe 15, 16 feet tall to the peak?
I would say no
I
more
mean,
than
if
12.
you look this
I'm sorry.
distance, I mean, this is the fence, put that up here, that's another 6, that's,
12 feet.
I don't eyeball things very well either, so don't take my word for it, so. Okay, the variance request we are talking about today, let me back up and ask you, Ed, since it's 4.5 feet and that's a fire setback of 5 feet, can the planning commission grant a variance to allow it to be 4.5 feet?
Yeah, you can grant a variance all the way down to 0 lot line. It just means that that wall has to be rated, and that has to be a rated assembly.
Okay, so he
It's
would
no
have to
different
go
than what we
back.
do where we have 0 lot lines.
Okay, he would have to go back and do the the rest up to the roof line if you did the walls
Yeah,
already?
he would have to, basically, he would have to put in a layer of 5/8 inch sheet rock on the inside, a layer of 5/8 inch sheet rock on the outside, and then any eave would have to have a double layer of sheet rock, couldn't have any vents in it, that
Or
sort of
just,
stuff.
or just pull the building a half foot?
Or pull the building a half foot over, yeah. It's hard because it's sideways.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so we're leaving that, and the rear setback would be from 20 feet to 8.6. So that's the variance request that we have before us tonight. You need to come back with a variance request for the size, because it wasn't advertised, so we can't hear that variance request tonight,
For,
for the size and the height of the building.
If he's going to build a permanent building, then it doesn't matter, because he gets a permit. It's CB
Okay.
no more than any other auxiliary structure that's allowed to be built
Okay.
inside the setbacks.
So as long as we grant these,
Yeah,
and he
it's not
has
a
the power
portable
to-
building anymore, now it's a
Okay.
permanent building.
Okay.
I'll be willing to do the walls. I mean,
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience?
But he got the utility easement vacated for the pool on the,
yes, there's none in the rear, I know for
Right.
sure.
but is it in the utility easement on the side of the building, on the?
I had one call come out and they didn't draw up
Okay,
anything.
we're not talking about
Okay,
whether there's
yes,
utilities
yeah.
there or not. Has it actually been vacated?
Not on the side.
Okay, so you can't be in that side setback at all?
10 feet, it's a 10-foot
10
side
feet,
setback,
yeah.
so you can't grant any variance.
You have to go through that same procedure to get the side utility easement vacated in order to have a structure in that before we could grant a variance for it.
Okay.
You went through the process, you have to notify all the utility companies, they have to present it back to us in writing that they approve vacating that portion of the utility easement. It goes to city council, they set a public hearing, 2 weeks later, they can vacate it, and then you can hear the variance after that.
But even if he does do that, he'd still have to add.
Yeah, we can do the side variance because,
No, the side.
No, we can do the rear variance.
no, we can do the rear,
so-
I'm sorry, we can do the rear, not the side, yes.
First and foremost, he needs to make sure that easement is vacated, or the building is, it's a mute issue. The building's going to have to come out altogether, correct?
Right.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing you need to accomplish first.
Clayton's coming one more time.
That dashed line is actually the setback line, not a utility easement.
Oh, okay,
So
we-
on that side, we're good. I looked, I saw the line.
You just
I
made
saw
his
the
day.
arrows.
That heart attack
I
was
got
brought to you
10,000
by Clayton.
It's fine. He'll live.
Okay,
It's-
you
it's a
just made his day.
setback line.
So, we can go back to the two variances together then, right? Because he's willing to do the
Fire
additional
rated wall.
fire for the side, okay. If it was easy, anybody could do it, right?
Call for vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Powell.
And these are together.
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Benado,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
No.
Mueller.
Yes.
Passes 8-1.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item, B 17-34, Ramsey Ball, Colliers International, Lot 1, Butterfield Coach Retail Park. Variance for modification of commercial design standards, presented by Ramsey Ball.
Oh, thank you.
So my name is Ramsey Ball. I'm with Colliers International, and this is Larry Grelly with Morrison Shipley Engineers. A little background on the site. It's Butterfield Coach Retail Park, so it's in front of the Walmart neighborhood market. It's just south of the Legacy Bank location out there. Clayton, can you put up the aerial that I provided? Some of the issues with the site that caused us to come in and seek a variance is that we're working to get approvals from 4 different entities: Legacy Bank, Walmart, the shopping center owner who owns the rest of the land, and the city of Springdale. So we're in seeking 3 variances. The variances are for the parking field, and Clayton, the site plan now would be good to take a look at. So the city calls for no more than 60% of the parking in front of the building because we have two primary streets, Butterfield Coach on the west and Cass Drive on the south. We, in essence, have two front streets, but as you can see, the parking is distributed on three different sides of the building. So I think that the variance here should be justified. We're also seeking a variance from an entrance requirement on the west side of the building, on the left side of the building, because it also fronts Butterfield Coach. We're asked to have an entrance there that's very prominent. The main entrance in this medical clinic is on the south side of the building. It's in a canopied area and a drive-through, and we want to make sure that the patients here are directed to this primary entrance and not the entrance on the side. We can put the prominent entrance on the side if this variance is not granted, but we think for safety issues and mobility issues, we'd rather not have that entrance.
You really just need one entrance, is what you're saying.
What's that?
You really just need one entrance for security of your patients and the way that it operates, correct? Okay.
And then the third variance that we're asking for is for the foundation landscaping along the building. Because of the dynamics of the site and our access easement with Legacy Bank, the two drives that come over from Legacy Bank, the size of the building, we've just been in the parking requirements from Walmart. We can't get any more landscaping in the foundation area. We do greatly exceed the green area requirement, and for the site, we have 50% more green area along Butterfield than is required. We have 15 feet rather than 10 feet. We also have 15% interior green space, which is, I think there's a requirement of 8%, so we almost double the green space area. And there are over 300 plantings in the development, so we think we are well landscaped, and it would be reasonable to grant a variance on the foundation landscaping right against the building on the two sides, the east and west sides. We do have some landscaping there, but we don't meet the city requirements.
Okay.
I think they've made an attempt to address the city's landscaping requirements. You do have landscaping in front of the building where the entrance side is on, correct? You have it around the corner on the second side to Butterfield Coach. It's the side where the drives that are on the back, on the east side of the building where you can't get landscaping, foundation landscaping at that location. If we're looking at this plan that shows up here, the green areas are the landscaping areas. So they've put it in every location that they could and add additional landscaping as far as that's concerned. We have done in more cases than one, not two principal entrances, when we see this kind of an arrangement where they've tried to address all of the intent of the ordinance itself.
Yes, we've worked very hard to try to get this to here today, and we'd very much like your approval on it.
And the reason you don't see it as a large scale, because this was an approved commercial subdivision, they can come in as a non-large scale, so they don't have to go back through the process, and the reason they're here is because they have to have the variances. Clayton, do you have the elevation pictures for these that you can show?
Mr. Ball, while they're looking for that picture, is this a Walmart-owned property?
It's not Walmart-owned. It's subject to Walmart restrictions.
Just the covenant easements?
The covenant CCR agreement, and it's owned by a shopping center developer, and we're acquiring.
I work for Walmart, so I didn't know if I needed to recuse out of the vote or not, so I just want to make sure. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
And there's the elevations of the building, what the building's going to look like.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote? No, go
I
ahead.
call for the vote, go ahead.
Call for vote by Mrs. Haney.
Parsley?
Yes.
Panado?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Variance is passed 9-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We did that one.
Oh, okay, my agenda's different than yours then.
B 17-36, Luke McCartney, Tacos for Life, 6400 West Sunset, variance for modification of commercial design standards presented by Luke McCartney.
Essentially, we have two front facades on our building that we were discussing last month, and we've gotten together with Ms. Christie, and hopefully that we have come up with a solution. This is actually the back of the building. It's going to be against 412, and you access the road from JTL Parkway. It's in Harbor Meadows subdivision. So we have a patio on the front. We don't have any in the front facade, the actual front facade. But the other side has a large patio for Tacos for Life. They want that patio to face the lake at Harbor Meadows and the walking trails as opposed to Highway 412. So we've backed the building up. We've added landscaping. We've made it appear to be the front of the building. We've added signage. And our biggest concern, I guess, was the drive-through area for Tacos for Life with the fence. We've pushed that back and we've added landscaping. We've also run into the same situation with the trash container. It doesn't matter what side the building is. It's going to be next to a road, and we're going to basically make it invisible with landscaping.
Staff
We
comments?
have spent many hours talking about this, many hours, because they came back with a plan to at least make the back of the buildings that look like have glass and front doors and awnings for the 3 additional buildings. It's still, the Tacos for Life still has a rear look, okay? And the location of the dumpster. It at least has the brick siding around it. They did add landscaping to it. They did, so we've addressed a lot of things. I can tell you, we started with, can't you just flip the building over? We had that discussion more times than one and got to the point where we decided, no, that can't happen. This is the way it needs to work, and it doesn't create a bad situation, but it does create a situation that we have at Harbor Meadows. This will be the only building that looks this way. This is the only section along 412 where you will see the back of the buildings, okay? We do have a memo from the ARC committee at Harbor Meadows who indicated their only concern was the color of the brick. They didn't like the light and the dark colors of the brick, and that's really something you all have to work out with them.
Right.
We don't have a standard that says you can't use that color
They don't
brick.
like the gray brick, basically.
Yeah, they don't like that. And they asked for additional landscaping, not necessarily where it's been placed here in the rear of the building as much.
Right.
Okay.
We essentially have the front of the building where you access it. When you drive by 412, you're going to see this, but you can't access the building from there at all. You have to go around the JTL Parkway, so when people drive up, they're going to see the actual front of the building. It won't be confusing, as well as, facing Harbor Meadows subdivision, so.
Well, and my concern has always been that Tacos for Life still looks like the back of the building. You have those metal fences around there. I understand that their utility meter bank is all in that corner where the fence is on the driveway side of that. We talked about, could that be bricked in so it at least looks like the back of the building? They have their call box on that side. I don't think there's any question with that. It's the fencing that's put in there. And then the back door on this building still looks like a back door.
Well,
And you can see through the opening in the fence to still
Right.
see that back door.
on that we can change that back door to match the others, or to make it look like make it appear to be glass. The fencing matches the architectural design of the rest of the building with the wood. We actually we did an alternate with brick, but the brick's so wide that we also have to have a standoff from the utilities, and then that gets rid of the curb because we can't be within 3 feet of the utilities. That wall is actually pretty close to there to still screen all that for the utility. The entire meter bank is right there.
And that, I understand, is the place you need to put those for utility expansion purposes. So
But that would also provide you having all of your delivery trucks stop right there, correct?
That's true. That's true, because that's the back of the building.
Right.
I mean, and, let's talk about this. There are places back of the building, you have buckets sitting out there, you have trash sitting out there where it's going to be moved. All of that's going to be visible through that fence. I think it's important that we put some kind of covering over the door so that you can't see through it.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the dumpster, is that stone? Is that stoned in?
Yes.
Yeah, it's brick.
brick.
Yeah.
Bricked in? Okay. I have to agree, I guess if that's a concept, regardless of what color ARC goes with, or y'all work out between you, I mean, could we not brick that and make that look a little less like the back of a building?
We did a brick concept.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, with the amount of space we have back there, if we were to brick that wall, we would go out to about another foot, bringing that wall out to the edge of that curb, and we wouldn't have the landscaping. Now, when you talk about the I guess I don't want to change course. We can discuss that. I mean, the fence matches the architectural design. We'd be open to do the brick. It's not that big of an issue. I actually have a rendering with the brick. It doesn't look good. That's why I chose this one. The wood looks way better. And this is the one that we kind of went with because of the landscaping against the fence, and it does match the top of the taco sign. The next point was that we actually have reinforced asphalt around the back of the building for delivery trucks. And I know y'all aren't familiar with Tacos for Life. Well, there is Tacos for Life in this area, but Tacos Life is very adamant about the cleanliness of their building. They're very adamant about certain amounts of landscape, even more so than is required by the city. Their outdoor area is very important to them. We cannot start a structure without getting confirmation on the outdoor structures out front. It's not going to be messy back there. I have no issue putting a gate back there. I know that runs into some fire code issues, and we'd have to talk to the fire marshal about that because there is
The reinforced concrete wasn't so much the concern as just the delivery truck stacked up.
Right.
You know, what people are driving by, looking over and seeing that, where normally that would be on the back of the building that they wouldn't normally see.
where there's no back. JTL Parkway is on the other side, so they're either going to be on that side or this side, and they're probably going to be on one of the edges of the building.
Well, they're going to
They're going to be, if they're on this right, you know, Freddy's parking lots. There's an easement right across the front of the building from Freddy's to Buffalo Wild Wings. We're pretty much surrounded.
But Roy, you were talking about the brick that's there on the back of the Tacos for Life building. Is that what you were saying? That was your original question?
I guess I was trying to figure out, because I had to agree with Patsy on the context of how the brown fence looks, kind of just a little back of the building look. But I was somewhat surprised to find out they were going to brick the entire garbage corral, basically the dumpster. And if you're going to spend that much money on that, why not just simply brick that in as well?
Now, we did talk about the possibility of moving that garbage,
We don't have any issue moving the garbage bin.
so that it's not right at the corner.
We're just trying to make it where it's accessible for our tenants, and we could move it up or back. We don't want it by the drive-through. That's the biggest thing, and we really
But you
don't want
could
it in
put
the
it on
front
the
of the
other
building.
side.
But we
You
could
put
put
it
it on the
on the
other
other
side of the
side.
building towards Buffalo Wild Wings, and it was originally there, and we moved it to this side because we thought that tacos would be using it more than possibly
Could it be moved to the west side of the building and be centered in the building rather than right on the corner next to 412 on that side?
Well, we don't have much of not tacos, but Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot comes within, I think they're 24 feet from the building there, their property line.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate with you and ask, if we do that, which I think is fine, you then have garbage trucks going in and out of where your customers are parked and walking, and you have delivery trucks on the other side of the building. So you've now got big trucks impeding both sides of the traffic versus just getting them all on one.
We typically get our garbage service at 3 or 4 a.m. when the restaurants aren't open. We don't have garbage. We don't have garbage picked up ever when the restaurants are
Because
open.
they make arrangements directly, it's not Waste Management doing it on a regular schedule.
The delivery trucks, typically, this is only a lunch through dinner restaurant, and they don't receive deliveries during open hours anyway. Not that when I completely agree with you, and it's going to be an issue, and it's an issue at all these strip centers, but because we don't know what's going to be in the other centers yet, and it could be affecting them, visibility-wise, if they're getting a delivery at 10 a.m. and those other stores are open, and that's going to be a problem if they're in the front,
And I
if
guess
they're
I
on
go back to
JTL
thinking
Parkway or
what
this side.
Vivi always talks about, and I appreciate her stance on, even though it's not comfortable sometimes, is today it's Tacos for Life, and that's their schedule today. What is it 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 15 years down the road, and are we willing to put up with that?
That's my concern.
Right.
I mean, they're
And
going
that's
to
not
take
slamming
care of it
tacos
while
at
it's
all.
there, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be sold
Right.
5 years from now, and we have a restaurant that doesn't have as much concern about it. Now, I know y'all
Right,
don't
I agree.
anticipate that, but we have to look at that long-term for what the
The
city
good thing
has.
to this, though, they still have to abide by the covenants of Harbor Meadows,
Right, which you all have to enforce.
which will be
Right.
enforced whether Tacos for Life there or
Yeah.
whoever's in there.
I did receive, and y'all got a copy of one comment today concerning this. I need to make sure this gets read into the record.
Just before you do that on that, I mean, because any other building wouldn't have that required as far as any type of screening as far as those utility boxes right there, correct?
If they're visible from the public right-of-way, they have to be screened, and they have to be screened. That's a commercial design standard
Okay.
requirement. So that's not something that's over and above what Harbor Meadows has, it's the commercial design standards.
So when we get into the downtown district and also as far as over into the ballpark district and things, this is going to be something that we have to deal with.
Right.
A lot on here. And so, I mean, I actually don't have a problem with the wood fencing, especially with the landscaping in the front of it, because over time that landscaping is going to cover up a vast majority of that anyway.
What about the ability to run the awning? To me, it's just that it looks, everything from the left of Tacos for Life looks great. It looks like the front of a building until you get there. The awning stops. It's now a different type of, it's brick instead of the other type of material. You got to fit, there's just a lot of things that visually change for the end of it.
I mean,
if
I
you
could
like run the awning or something
could possibly
down.
run the Tacos for Life down. The awning, I mean, those awnings is going to, I mean, it's not a non-issue. I mean, that's $20,000 awning. We'll just throw it on there, I guess, you know, in that point. But that's a non-issue. If we need another awning, we'll put another awning there.
I mean,
If you
let's
think
get
that'll look better,
consensus.
we're gonna. If that's what it takes to get the approval on that, I don't think functionally it's going to do anything but add a huge expense to the building. We will cover the fence with. I have no issue making that fence brick and making it blend in. We've added $30,000 in windows to the back of the building, and we're making it. We're going to make it. It's going to. You saw the other rendering with the real signs on it.
We have come a long way.
It looks like the front of a building when the real signs are on there.
And I told you not to put the signs on there because y'all would really chomped at the bit if you saw what
Right.
he put on those. And he
So
was
it's-
really ready to make those.
Everyone
commitments
that's,
yet,
all
so-
the tenant, of course, like you said, you're preparing for the future, and I understand that. But the tenants love the way this building looks, and they love the access where everyone's coming in on that side of the building in the park. If there's something that we need to work with the fence, that's a Tacos for Life staple. I mean, that's on every single one of their restaurants.
Well, it's their logo, right?
They
It's
like
it's
the
their
way it
brand.
looks.
It's what they want to protect, and I get that. I wouldn't move the Taco for Life sign if it were me. While there is an expense of moving that awning across, I would move the awning across, I would move the garbage to the front of the building and leave the wooden fence the way it is.
Okay, let me read this comment in, so I promised I would get it read in, and let me do my thing here.
Did you read all letters into the Tacos?
We usually do. I don't know that we've had any others tonight. You will, or I'll ask you, you've got one on your table. If you don't want me to read it in, you know what it says, or as long as it gets included into the record, that's all that matters.
I'm okay with including it in the record, but when we receive emails and letters, the question is, do we enter them all into the record?
If they
by
submit it-
reading- By reading them.
If they submit it to me, I will bring it to you to say, do you want me to read it, or do you want to just refer to it that it was submitted as part of the record? This one was specifically asked to be put in as part of the record of tonight's meeting.
I've read it. I'm good.
Y'all good with it just being entered into that, not being read tonight? We got guys over here who haven't heard it. Okay, let me just read it real quickly and make sure we can do that. As you know, received a notice of meeting concerning the development renderings below as an adjoining property owner on 412 West. I want to express our concerns on a couple of areas we think could set a precedent that could be troublesome to deal with in the future, where there are alternatives that might be changed at this time. As I understand the renderings, the developer wants to have the back of the buildings facing 412. This has been done before in Springdale. As an example, where Jimmy John's and Bluefin are located, the back of their location's 412 and certainly looks wonderful. The difference in this example is two things. The first being that they do not have a dumpster located in front of the development on the highway, and second, their restaurants do not open to the highway through a door where you can see in a location that might store boxes, trash, etc. to be used by the restaurant. I would ask that you discuss moving the dumpster location off the highway to the north of the building and what I assume is going to be used as parking, as I am not aware of another location that has a dumpster at the front facing the highway in such a very visible location. I do not know the exact requirements that was passed in the overlay district concerning dumpsters, but hopefully that could give some guidance on how to deal with this problem. Secondly, could you consider requiring the developer to close off the back fence brink of the location where you cannot see the door and any trash that might accumulate in that area, and put a gate that matches the material on the east side to remain shut when not in use? There would seem to be minor adjustments that could enhance the property for all of surrounding developments. Thank you, Gary George.
Just put a sliding gate on that? Is that what you would put in there?
The fire marshal might be able to answer this. If we close that off for egress, have you had any fences like that closed off on the back door for egress? that has a push bar on it? That's it? So that would meet the requirement? Okay. So we can do that.
Okay, so you can add and you'll submit a.
We can add a fence, I mean, we can just make it match the fence with a push bar on it. For the dumpster, my only concern for it's a major concern, because if we move it to the front and we're trying to lease that tenant space to another restaurant, then we have the bin in front of their restaurant, or if it's a boutique, or, I mean, you've seen the kind of stores that are going in there, and they don't want the bin in the front, especially with, there's no good place for it around unless we put it on and if we put it on the other side of the property, it's on JTL Parkway. So we have tried to make it attractive, and we're going to put landscaping around it. And I'm not opposed to putting the same types of trees that are all the way down Highway 412 in front of the entire building, where you can't, I don't mind doing any of that.
Is that not the landscaping that the ARC asked for, to continue that look on down through there from Buffalo Wild Wings to Freddy's?
Yeah, they have trees in front of the entire, in front of the entire run. So honestly, when and they're big, they're 30-foot trees right now. So in 5 years, the front of the building, the back of the building, which looks like the front of the building, it's not even really going to be seen. I can completely camouflage the trash container. I understand. It is a concern for us too. We don't want people going to our restaurants that are going to be driving right by the trash bin, but we also don't want the other tenants in the building who have less trash than everyone else to be sitting right next to the trash bin.
They're not going to come pick it up till 4 in the morning. It's not going to be
Right.
seen and heard. And they're doing a fine job of securing it, making it out of brick and leave it there, and just run the awning across underneath the Tacos for Life sign and be done with it.
And they've got it enclosed.
Okay, so your suggestion is that they put the door in the fence,
We can do that.
Panic Hardware, extend the canopy across the Tacos for Life, leave the sign where it is, and leave the dumpster as shown on here with the landscaping.
That's my
That's
opinion.
Roy's proposal.
Anybody else wants to
Is it
comment on it?
feasible to face the dumpster back to the south?
We could do that.
I mean, to the north?
To the north.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We have a pad that's not on the rendering. So there's a 10-foot pad in front of all the dumpster bins, and that's reinforced asphalt going up to it, because when those trucks turn, they'll tear up the asphalt. So if we turned it, we would lose the parking, or we definitely couldn't use it when there was people parked there. So we've put it in that location because that's just a drive around for the drive-through. It's an extra drive.
They pick it up at 4 in the morning. You shouldn't have any cars parked there.
Well, it's not as much as, yeah. It's not the concern with the trash truck getting there. I guess, we could put it where you come through the parking spots. I guess that wouldn't matter.
Would he have enough parking? Because he could not designate those as parking spaces if it faces that way.
They wouldn't be able to open the gate to.
That was kind of my concern, is that we wouldn't be able to open the front of the gate.
If by chance somebody breaks down there, has a flat tire, and it's stuck there, that trash can't be picked up.
But on the west side, are there parking spots on that?
We can move it to the other side of the building, on the other corner. And we have looked at other locations. We don't want to be anywhere near the drive-through, obviously, and I know that's not your concern majorly, but like I said, if we move it to the front of the building, it's going to be the same situation with JTL Parkway. We don't have a lot of space next to Buffalo Wild Wings, but we have about the same location as we do on this side, so it would just be on the other corner of the building. And then I think the city, the commercial design standards state that you can't, if you have 40 feet between buildings, you can't have the trash more than 40 feet, you can't have the trash bin between the buildings, and then you can't also have it in the front, and essentially we have two fronts here.
But a majority of the trash areas are on JTL, right? As far as the other properties?
Right, all the rest of the trash dumpsters are on the JTL side of it. But this is the only one that has a direct frontage onto JTL rather than having their frontage
Right.
on.
Brady's is incorporated theirs in their building. It just looks like an extension of the building, so you never.
You don't even notice that it's there.
Misha, did you have something?
Well, I just have a question. So if we moved I'll help you. We'll move that to the front of the building. Then you've got employees that are coming out of the back of the building, walking through a very busy parking lot, because I've been in Fayetteville at the Tacos for Life, and it's always a very busy parking lot, walking all the way through with bags of trash that possibly have food and other stuff in it, all the way through the parking lot to the front to dump it. It just seems like a safety issue for me, or that we would have the possibility of trash that would be blowing around, because that's a long way to walk around to get to a dumpster, in my opinion.
As far as the distance goes, your tenants will have just as far to go as you would, no matter where you put it. I mean,
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. As far as your tenants would go, they would have to walk.
Yeah,
that same
our
distance
tenant,
with
typically the
trash.
tenants in these other spaces don't have but 1 or 2 bags of trash sometimes in a week.
restaurant on the other side.
Well, we don't know. Right, that's what I was about to get to. Unless there was we are preparing for a restaurant on the other side as well, which they will have to walk across, which they'll have that space, but they won't be walking across the parking lot in the
No
front.
drive-in, right?
They'll be walking across the drive-through.
No. The other restaurant will not have a drive-in window.
No, there'll be no drive-through on the other restaurant.
We already discussed
We
that.
can only do one per when we do these buildings. Sorry.
Colby Fulfer, 1323 San Miguel. Every morning and every afternoon, I drive right past this property and go into Onyx Coffee Lab. They say coffee stunts your growth, and I'm hoping that will help. I drive right past the building that's actually facing to the west. It's Tropical Smoothie, a burrito. You'd think I'd know them all. I think Core went in there.
Jesse went in there
And it's all facing to the west. And they've put their dumpster, I think it's on the northeast corner, but it's at a diagonal. I've driven past it twice a day, almost every day, for about 5 years now, and I've never driven past it and thought, this is not aesthetically pleasing at all. And I think the design looks great regardless of the awning, and I think it actually looks better than some of the other things in that area. And I know Tacos is very strategic about having the patio area on the other side of it, and just talking to some of the people with it. It's one of the fastest growing casual fast food restaurants in the country right now, and I'm excited to get one of those in Springdale so I don't have to drive to Fayetteville. But they're very strategic about why they do that, and I was hoping one of them would be able to come and share that. But I think it looks great, and I think it has a better looking front than really what we ended up with close to there. But like I said, we have another building facing to the west. I think it looks fine, and I think this would look great and be a great addition there.
To mention that, I'm also the operations officer for Tacos for Life for all the franchises. I don't know if that's important, but yes, everything he said is correct. It's very strategic in the placement of the building. They want it to look a certain way. I know when I take this back to Mark, the owner, he's adamant about the fence. They like that. This is actually almost exactly what all our freestanding buildings look like. There's one going in I don't know if there's another freestanding in this area that you may have seen, but the one in Rogers would look just like this building with the rest of it cut off. The brick's exactly the same, the signage is the same, the fence is exactly the same. It's a little bit wider than that, but I don't have a problem doing it. My company owns the building, and if we needed to put the awning on, that is not an issue for me, okay? Tacos is not going to approve that. I think we discussed that the other day. They're real, the way that we do, I don't have anything to do with the building design at all, okay? I get the franchises and locations, and that's what we're doing here, but as adding that awning, that will be something I have to take back. That's not really something that I could just probably add to their restaurant. And they want this location, but I think that they want to be in this location, and they want to start doing these centers like this, and this is the first one. And I'm glad that we're having these issues, because we're also in Nashville and places like that where we have a lot of the same exact stuff. But there's a lot of good questions here. But what I'm trying to say is, what in the commercial design standards are we not meeting with this building?
Number one, you have 2 fronts. You're supposed
Right.
to have 2 primary entrances, which you don't.
Right. So
But
that's
you're
what the
asking for just
variance
one.
application
basically, you're asking for the back of the building to face the second 412. That's how we look, it looks like a principal entrance, but it's not.
Right. So if we,
But this one is not looking like a principal entrance, so that's where the variance really is.
okay.
And Kevin just asked about angling the building. There, what we didn't talk about is
I was asking about the angling of the dumpster.
Yeah. There is a access easement, an ingress egress easement that goes from Freddy's all the way across through there, so you can
Correct.
get to Buffalo Wild Wings into the
Correct.
street that's on that other side. That kept it from moving any
We
other-
couldn't put it on the other side of the
Because
easement?
We've tried moving it, we've tried turning it around, we didn't do it upside down yet. We haven't done that.
We originally, with the drive-through, if we turn it around, the drive-through is in the easement. So, and then you have cars sitting in the easement. So the easement, we don't meet the requirements of what we agreed on when we purchased the property to keep open flow between the Buffalo Wild Wings and
Okay,
Freddy's.
so Roy's suggestion about the canopy is not something you're willing to add to your variance request, that you would put that in. You're willing to do the door between the fences. You want to keep the fences as is, but put a door with a fire access so that you could get out, so that you don't see that back door, correct?
I will commit to doing it. If you absolutely are adamant about the canopy, I'll say that I'll put it on there and I'll fight that fight with tacos until it's done.
Well, since I brought that up, or actually Peyton and I were talking about, let's be clear. I like the aesthetic look of the awning. If you say to me, is that the hill you're gonna die on for this building? No.
Okay.
It's just a suggestion. If it's not something that's gonna, run the train clear off the mountain, let's not spend any more time on it. Let's move on. It was a suggestion.
I think all the other stuff's easy for us to
No, I'm with
comply
you.
with.
I appreciate it. I
Okay,
appreciate
if the canopy goes away, we're talking about the door that goes to the fence. Are we talking about the dumpster staying where it is? Not being turned or angled or leaving it just like it is?
Which, if you can see the material on the gate, it matches the rest of the wood on the building. So, and then I know this just shows a little bit of landscaping, but we'll do, and I've talked to Patsy about this. We will do as much landscaping as you'd like. We'll make it look really nice out there. And like I said, there's going to be 10 30-foot trees in front of the building.
Part of,
Along
if you move the dumpster area, or not move it, but turn it,
Turn it.
you would have to lose some of the parking. Do they still have enough parking?
Okay, I don't remember, is Clayton gone? How many parking, I don't know what their parking requirements are because I've been through too many issues, I don't remember. Do you remember how many you're providing and how many you're
I'm building
required
4 of
to-
these right now. There may be 62. That sounds like a number in my mind, but that could be anywhere else.
Okay, we're looking, hold on a second.
Well, and I'll just say too, that Roy said exactly what I was thinking. It's just an idea, just trying, because, and I know that, like you said, you're not involved in the building design.
Right.
But if whoever's doing the building design can't figure out how to get this to where they can have the front facing the street that has the most cars coming down it, I just feel like this is going to, and also I think that I'd love to see, because this is the first project in Springdale, a lot of it is, well, if you come in and you do everything that you say you're going to do and you go above and beyond, then the next one's easy, right? Because
Right.
we trust it's already there. But I feel like if we can't figure out how to orient a building to where the dumpster's not in the front and the front is not in front, this is just going to be a thing every time. It would be my guess, But yes, I think
We have, and I wish that I had brought my slides, but we have built buildings in Fayetteville similar to this, where the front, it's exactly like this with the drive-through. They're actually not as screened. We didn't screen the meter banks, and those are obviously, like, if we didn't screen the meter banks, we could run the windows all the way down and put an awning, but you'd have meters there, and we could possibly screen them with landscaping, and we've suggested that, but that never works. We have landscaping in front of the Starbucks on Weddington in Fayetteville. If y'all have ever been there, you drive up to the back of it, the drive-through wraps around the side, but if you drive down that side and you actually look at the building, it's all false glass, very similar to this one will be, and there are meters on that side of the building, which we have screened everything. We have a large meter bank on this building. We have all the gas and all the meters that are screened by that fence. And so that building doesn't have that. So we thought, when we actually originally talked about this 6 months ago, we said, let's which from the original drawings, we had attempted to change the parapets and the pop-ups to make it look nicer, but then we had discussed adding glass. We didn't do that until we had a discussion with Patsy. We added the glass, we added the landscaping. So we are completely going to do what it takes to get that building there and make it look the way Springdale wants it to. I think that our biggest constraint is going to be the fence and everything that's behind the fence if we move it, because I think we can add the fence and we can put the push bar on it. I think that's a non-issue. If you want us to put the canopy, we'll put a canopy on it. But the wall's still going to be right under it. There's not going to be any windows on the wall.
I think you heard him earlier on there. I mean, if it's going to be, it's suggestions in that
Right.
whole piece on it. But, I mean, if it's going to be a showstopper in that whole piece, I mean, we'll go with what we have on that. But on this, it looks like you have enough parking that if we needed to be able to eliminate, say, 4 or 5 spots, in order to turn that dumpster a different direction, because that way it is not going to be facing at all as far as 412, as far as the opening of it. My concern is over time, while Tacos for Life does a great job on all of that, anytime around a trash dumpster, you're going to have stainage on the concrete and things like that, and that's probably not something that you want to be able to see as far as on a frontage of a major.
So are you saying to move the or just turn it? Okay.
Turning it to where the opening is on the north side.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
Because if we do
my
that,
only
we
question-
actually get parking back on the back of the building,
Okay.
because the way that it's facing is preventing that parking from being there. So, I mean, that's a non-issue. I mean, for parking wise, because we'll actually gain a
was my
couple
only
extra
question I had
spots.
on
Yeah, we can turn that. And I told Patsy this last week. I said, with the trash bin, I'm open. We'll put it anywhere you want us to put it, honestly. I don't want to put it right in front of Tacos or next to the drive-through.
Sure.
That's the biggest concern I have.
Okay, so we're down to your variance request is you're not going to have 2 principal entrances. You're going to have entrance off of JTL Parkway. You will add a door to the 2 fence sections.
Yes.
To close that off, and the dumpster will be turned facing the north, and you'll switch the parking around with that. Okay? Are we including the canopy or not? You'll have to decide. No? Okay. Okay. That's what the variance request boils down to. Wait a minute, here comes.
Before you do this dumpster thing, if you turn that dumpster facing to the north, the trash truck has to come in and then go against the flow of traffic that goes through the drive-through.
But it's at
And
4
while
in the
he
morning.
says they're not gonna open, they're gonna have their trash picked up at a certain time, that doesn't mean that future people, there could be a donut shop there that opens at 3 o'clock in the morning with people in a drive-through. I just don't want this to come back and bite us
Yeah.
10 years from now when Tacos for
But
Life
if
has
you-
built another
if-
facility and have
Couldn't the
moved on
donut
to
shop
this
have their
place.
trash picked up at a different time?
I just throwing that out there. because-
Wouldn't the truck go around by the drive-through
turn-
and back up to
If
the
you
door?
turn it to the north, they're gonna pull in, dump it, back up, and then go against the flow of the traffic.
It does. There's also other things that also creates, because like I was saying with the reinforced asphalt and the flow of traffic and the pad that's there, and if, like he's saying, they would have to back up, and they would actually be backing up towards the drive-through. And, I mean, if y'all have been around a lot of these centers, these dump trucks or the trash trucks are heavy, and they do over time destroy the asphalt and would likely destroy the drive-through.
They don't like to back up.
They do not like to back up.
I mean, ultimately, the dumpster's gonna be there. Facing it to the north or facing it to the west isn't gonna change the fact that it's there.
It's there, but the aesthetics of it can be very different.
I don't know.
You're coming from Siloam towards Springdale, and you're going to see that as far as
I mean,
that opening.
You could argue that they leave the dumpster bins open on the top or leave the gate open one way or the other.
Okay.
I'm just saying, from a flow of traffic wise and potential of
Yeah.
tenant changing. it
Even
could
with the
mess
tenant
it up.
changing, whether it's a donut shop or, I mean, I don't know many that are actually opening at 3 in the morning as far as for that to happen
I'm
on there,
just-
but, I mean,
It's just one of the
I know.
many possibilities that can happen.
and I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but that particular area is critically important as far as kind of finishing up that harbor area on it. And you've got a request in here as far as doing something a little bit different as far as that dumpster. And I don't think we all feel that completely moving it to the north side, whereas actually the true front of the building is acceptable, that this seems like it's the right location. All I'm saying is just turn it to the north.
You know, if it's turned to the north, then it's going to have a protected front where the gates are. And I haven't been around restaurant business, they'll leave it open. They won't close those gates. If it's facing the drive, they're going to have to close it because cars will be coming and going. Delivery trucks.
I do have to, just because of what I do for a living, I have to agree that while I would much rather see it turned to the north from the aesthetic viewpoint, if that's not all then redone with reinforced concrete, that asphalt will be destroyed in 6 months, as soon as it gets hot. That's just my experiences. When they come down through there, they will rip that asphalt apart because it's not built for that type of weight in that location as we have them as parking stalls today.
It's a suggestion.
You know, I'm with you. I agree. The
If
only other
others feel
option
that
is
it
for you
doesn't
move
need to
that
be
over,
there,
which is a
then-
full redesign and a lot more cost
To
on
move
it.
the entire
Well,
pickup
to
point?
reinforce all that.
Oh, right.
That's just an additional cost. I'm actually with you, Kevin. I just think that's, long-term, we'll be more unhappy that that parking lot is destroyed. The doors will be closed, but the parking lot will be rutted up and we'll be unhappy.
Could the landscaping kind of hide that?
Well, that's what I was going to make a suggestion that we could run the landscaping a little further out that might screen it a little bit. It's not going to, like, I guess from Siloam Springs, I don't know what's down 412, but I guess when you're coming east, you'll see the front of the bin currently. And I don't know, I mean, we couldn't run it out far enough that you wouldn't be able to see it. I mean,
If you want it facing the north,
We
the
could-
only place you can put it will be on the west side. When that truck comes into the business off of JTL, that it runs straight up to it, dumps, backs out, and goes back behind Tacos for Life and comes out. That's it. That's
Yeah,
really
we-
the only way you can be able to do that.
The easiest answer is exactly what Dale's
moved to
talking
the
about.
other
It's Just
side.
putting some higher landscaping farther down towards
Farther down.
412.
That would help
And
much.
you're not talking about more than probably 10, 15 feet at the most. And even if they left the doors open, like Evie was talking about, you wouldn't see it with the landscaping there.
I
But you
agree.
can't put in foot bushes, right? I mean, you're gonna put something a little bit bigger to keep
Right,
it.
we're-
That's a lot cheaper
Okay, so we're back to
opportunity
not
than
turning
reinforced
the-
concrete.
the
So,
dumpster
so
looking.
what would be the big deal of moving it to the west side and facing it to the north? What's the complications?
I don't have any issue. I mean, it was there. We had it on the west side facing north. I think it was I can't remember why we moved it.
Part of it is the distance from Tacos to Life. They have to go across the parking lot through their drive-through.
Tacos would be happy if we moved it to the other side of the building. They don't want it there.
That may have been something you wanted to bring up 30 minutes ago.
But my engine, the engineer's the one that ended up telling me to put it on that side, and I can't remember why we ended up. Is there something there on the site plan on that side of the building? I'm not concerned. If we move it to that side of the building, it's fine. That's where it started.
Looks like parking right here.
And you could lose some of those. What's that little box that's shadowed?
That's
in
what
there?
I was
What's that? The transformer. That's probably the reason why it's not on that side.
But you'd just swap stalls out of that side to the other side, still get your stall count and just have it at the other end.
Yeah, that's true. You
Yeah,
could put
I'm
it-
not concerned with the parking. I mean, we can move the parking spots. That's.
Okay, so now we're moving the dumpster.
Actually, the first renderings I sent you, I think it's there. That's exactly where it is.
We're moving the dumpster to the west side, and it's going to face north.
By the time we're done, we're gonna have you down on Elm Springs Road by the Walmart.
And we don't do design at the table, guys. Keep that in mind, remember? We have spent a lot of hours trying to work this one out. This is a tough one. It really is.
I think at the end of the day that you're going to be really pleased. Our buildings are really attractive. It's going to look great. And if you've been to a Tacos for Life, and this is just a side note, they're so busy. So, I mean, as much parking as we need, if we can get, is great. It's just that parking lot's going to be full. And you know, everyone approaching from that side of the building is just going to be more feasible. It's not going to be as confusing, I think, for everybody.
Okay, so now we're down to your request is to put the door on the fence, move the dumpster location to the west side, and face it north to the whatever
Yes.
corner that. That's what it's going to say, right?
Yes.
Okay? Is that what you want?
Trash bin on west side, door on gate. And what was the other?
Facing the
Facing it north.
Oh, facing
the
north.
dumpster
Okay.
faces the north, so they pull into it go pick up the trash.
That would
and
be
then going
great.
around. Okay.
And they can just drive
can
on
do all that
around the
stuff.
building, and they'll never have to back up more than just to get away from the gate.
Okay.
Be a call for the vote.
Call for
Call
the
for the
vote.
vote.
Call for the vote by Mrs. Haney.
Benado,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley.
Yes. Variance is passed 9-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Patsy.
Next item, B 17-37, Luis Frouds, 2871 Highway 412 East, variance for modification of commercial design standards presented by Bates and Associates.
Before you start, can you show us where your dumpster's at?
We put it on the road, facing the street. Dave Burris, Burris Architecture. We were here last month, and I was a bit caught off guard. I assumed that we were submitting for a variance last month. Apparently, the owner had not closed on the property, therefore we didn't have the signatures to be able to do so. So I came up here and was kind of just kind of stuttered there for a little bit. So I apologize. That was supposed to go in last month. What we are doing is we are requesting a variance to make use of a metal wall panel on 3 facades. That would be the west, the east, and then the south facade. The street-facing north facade, which is appropriately misspelled, is of all of an approved stone veneer. Our owner, this user, he sells basically stone and metal wall panel. And his goal was obviously to build a building with his metal wall panel and his stone that he sells on this. We've explained to him we'd like to try to do a little bit of articulation on the sides. We've ran the wainscot all the way around on the east and the west side, and then expressed our structure from the interior onto the exterior with 2'8" wide pilasters. Along every grid line. We also wrap the full height approved material down each side. Obviously, the site plans, which I believe you guys had from last month, we do have perimeter landscaping in there and so on. But our primary variance is to make use of the metal wall panel. For your use, we've also provided the amount of wall panel versus stone veneer that is being used on each facade.
Staff comments?
Made a little progress, It's not an all-metal building. So the rear portion of the building will be all metal panels.
Yes, ma'am. The south.
That backs up to what's behind it?
I believe we're zone C2. I believe the south is residential.
Okay, so the residential subdivision back there has to look at a blank metal wall.
Yes. Now, if I'm not mistaken, right. Rear butts rear, and I'm sure because we're abutting them, we have a landscaping buffer.
Is it possible to extend that wainscoting all around that side too, with the same kind of treatment on the back as you have on the other 2 sides?
Absolutely. Well, we can wrap that wainscot on that south side.
Any other comments? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience to the commission?
Okay, so this would be a modified request in that the south elevation will be modified with the same treatments as those on the east and west sides with the
Confirmed.
wainscoting and, what did you call that other stuff?
Pilasters?
Pilasters, okay.
We'll
That are
wrap
what
those
side?
on the corner on either side, and then that wainscoting went up 4 feet high, higher than a standard.
Okay. And then across the back, it would just have the corners?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll send this to you first thing in the morning, but we'll go ahead
put
and wrap
one
the
in the
corners
middle there?
similar that we've done the pilasters on either side.
Could you do one in the middle of that back panel?
Would you like to see one in the middle of the panel?
Breaks up that wall. How wide is that wall?
The height of the wall is
No, how
about
wide is it from?
50 feet.
Oh, well, never mind, I can't make
Yeah,
you do that. That's-
well, not that you can't make me do it, I just don't want to make it look like a big middle finger in the back of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would not be appropriate to the.
Fine, okay.
Okay.
Be a call for a vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for a vote by Mr. Covert.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Benado.
Yes.
Variance is passed 9-0.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next item, B 17-39, Martha Aguilar, 2987 Chestnut Avenue, increase of height of fence in front from 3 feet to 6 feet. That's corner lots, presented by Martha Aguilar. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
It's fine. Okay. We wanted to get a 6-foot fence for.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Mine is Katia Herrera. I'm her daughter.
This is my mic.
Okay.
Yeah. We wanted to get a 6-foot privacy fence for privacy and safety because we're like right there in the corner and it's been broken into before. All the other houses have a fence. I don't think it's going to be a problem with them.
So you want to start from the edge of the house and come down?
No, it'd be from the edge of the garage, pretty much, like where the driveway ends, and down to where the neighbor's fence is.
Okay. On the street side?
Yeah.
Do you have comments? No comments? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Now, my only question is sight lines on that corner.
Of course, if they're going far enough back, they'll be outside the sight triangle so that you won't be able, it won't be a problem.
You can
Or
still see
should
the
be.
corner.
I don't know what the distance is from the corner.
Yeah.
Mirroring this one, right?
Right.
Clayton?
I have a question. So you're not going past the front of your house with a 6-foot fence?
No, it'd just be right at the driveway, right? Like, well, I made a drawing.
So I'm gonna draw on your, so if this is the house, and let's say this is the street, your fence is gonna stop here?
Yes.
They don't need a variance.
Other than,
The purpose, when a front yard in terms of fencing is defined as anything beyond the plane of the front of the house towards the street. So for corner lots, it's always assumed that the side is not the front for a fence. So they could build the fence 6 feet tall as long as they don't, and go all the way out to the street. You probably can't see
as
this.
long as they don't go beyond the front plane of
As
the house.
long as they don't go beyond the front of their house.
Right, okay.
And
That
that's not
won't
their
block,
intent.
I mean, my concern was when you hit that stop sign going west, they're not gonna go all the way out to the
No,
street.
they're
that way.
not, because she just said that they're not gonna go past the front of their
No.
house with a
Right.
6-foot fence. So that entire area in the front yard would have no fence.
So basically, the variance we're giving them is you have to stop at the front of the house.
Well, you don't
you
give
can't
them a
go-
There's no
variance
variance.
to
Where
apply,
there's really
to
no
abide by the ordinance.
Right, you're right.
So I think it's just a misunderstanding on what they needed to apply for.
And how far they were going
And
to take
how-
the fence.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if their intent is to not go beyond that point, then you don't need to grant them a variance for anything.
You understand that. If you go beyond that point, then you have to come back and get the
So
variance.
if this is
Yeah.
the front.
Yeah, it's just right there at the
and then
driveway.
Your driveway.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't be able to go past that,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So when we're putting these signs out, as far as for letting people know about this, how did we get to this point of not having this clarification?
We didn't know exactly where all the intended to put the fence.
How do we get to where we ask the
We
right
got to have a
questions?
drawing, we got to have a drawing that shows that.
Okay, how do we get to asking the right questions so we don't have people having to
Well,
sit through
when they
these?
came in, I didn't realize that was, that they didn't need a variance. I just told them that they could not extend beyond the front of their house, where that corner is. But I still thought that was the front yard, so.
We don't have a drawing with their
Okay.
application.
I just-
because I know, we'll work on that.
My apologies that you had to sit through to
That's
get to
fine.
this point on it. I would just have a call out that with these types of things, let's make sure we're asking the right questions so that we don't have to have these on here. And that,
We'll work at it as we move forward.
Well, like I said, that's
understand.
considered a front yard, so,
Okay.
you know,
We'll get there.
I'm programmed
So-
for 3 feet.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, next item, preliminary plats, 1605 Springdale 26.
We already done that waiver? We already do that waiver?
We did the one waiver.
But we've got a 1-year extension. Yeah, the
Oh,
waiver
okay,
we
okay,
did
I'm
with
sorry, I
the
forgot to
lot
mark that.
split.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have Springdale 2016 LLC, northwest corner of Downham and County Line Roads, one-year extension approved July 2016, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. We received approval last July for this preliminary plat, requesting a one-year extension. I believe there were some title work issues with the project. Couldn't move forward until those were cleared up, so.
You haven't started any construction or anything
No,
out there? Still
no.
trying to get, property hasn't sold yet?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Okay. Questions from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Panado,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Extension passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Director's report?
Can I, before we jump into that, can I just throw something out real quick? I just want for the record to appreciate Councilwoman Jay Cox, Councilman Jim Reed and Colby, who was here with us as well, for the entire night. Really appreciate you taking an extra night and sticking with us through a little bit longer meeting, and appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you.
And
And all the departments that are here as well, so.
Alderman Jay Cox has worked with the mayor to establish an ability to have a ORT bus on June the 19th, meeting here at 5:30, to tour around the city and look at some of the community engagement issues that we've all been talking about. We found several years ago, if you go look at them, it kind of gives you a different perspective of what we're talking about. So 5:30 to 7:30, 5:30 to however long it takes to do those. Encourage everybody to be here that night. We need to schedule a work session then the next night to finalize the master street plan so that we can schedule a public meeting on that at the July Planning Commission meeting, so that we can have our public hearing and move forward on the amendments to the master street plan. I know that we talked about trying to get a tour of the Children's Hospital. That's probably not going to happen until July, so we're trying to get that with these other things going on. So July the 20th at 5:30, June the 20th at 5:30, and June the 19th here at 5:30. So that's one extra time. We might, if we get back in time, be able to kind of put it all together in one night if we can all work all that out. And again, I'll say thank you for the position of you got to have the elevations in, because it's really easy for say, nope, you're not getting on the agenda until you get them, so it's working.
Any other comments? All right, meeting adjourned.